All right, need some more coffee. Oh. Oh. What's up, everybody? Happy Saturday to you. Just reheating some coffee. Just was on a marathon live. Like, what was it, about 4.5 hours, maybe? No, 3.5 hours. It wasn't. It seemed a lot longer though. So for anybody, hey Fat Cat, for anybody who saw it, it was quite a crazy ride. The person I was speaking to, there would be a question posed, like the topic was, is the war in Gaza justified? And so we got to do 10-minute opening pitches. And so I talked about the issue, right, as you would. And the gentleman that I was speaking to, a term being used quite loosely, all he did was attack me. He called me Schmittler, Mustache Man, KKK, all this other crazy stuff. It was quite interesting. But unfortunately, and I was really curious to hear his views, he didn't address the questions. He just went off on these rants about complaining about anybody who criticizes Israel as a schmatzi and everyone's a terrorist and, all this other crazy stuff. So unfortunately, that's what happened. Anyway, it is what it is. Unfortunately, when we get into these exchanges, far too frequently they become ad hominem attacks where everybody just kind of goes at you, which is unfortunate. And in terms of levying the claim of anti-Semitism, there is a lot of anti-Semitism around the world. It should be called out and condemned whenever and wherever it happens. And sometimes, unfortunately, people will conflate criticism of the political entity, which is the Israeli state, the government, their actions. But that doesn't mean criticizing the population. Although I do find it troubling when people from the population support the things that the Israeli government does that we're being critical of, because that means they're kind of behind the things that we know are war crimes, etc. So again, it's not about disparaging any individual or people, because there are plenty of people that I've met through Jewish Voices for Peace, who are, by the way, Jewish by definition because it's a Jewish organization, who speak to this issue differently than those who support, for example, the Netanyahu government, the settlements, the occupation in the West Bank, the war in Gaza, etc. Are those self-hating people? Are they bad people because they're Jewish people who disagree with the political entity and the government's decisions? I don't think so. I'm an American. I don't certainly dislike all Americans. Americans mostly a Christian country. I certainly don't dislike Christians. I was raised as one. But I am critical of the actions that our inner government takes, the long-standing, unelected people that tend to make a lot of these foreign policy decisions that have a lot of negative impact on others around the world and cost a lot of money. So I think it's fair, and luckily we do have freedom of speech, thank goodness. I don't advocate violence. I'm against violence, so I'm not for any kind of overthrow of the government or anything like that. But I wish we could have reforms that would limit or eliminate a lot of the things that our government decides to do, because I think they cause, in many cases, more harm than good. A couple of examples: Libya. What's happened in Libya since the leader was deposed? It's been total chaos. It's a disaster. It's a failed state. Look what happened in Iraq. By dismissing the civil servants in the military, which was done under Paul Bremer, the administrative control during the initial stages after the war, and it was called the Provisional Iraqi Authority or some shit like that. All those people got frustrated. They weren't getting paid, so what did they do? They turned on the very people who did that to them. They formed these crazy, radicalized Islamic fundamentalist groups that just went on a rampage throughout the region and caused total chaos for a number of years. So these are the reasons why I oppose these things. It's not because I'm against being an American or anything like that. And people have said, like, well, because I was in the military, and I've had people lay allegations like, hey, you must be you're a bad American because you don't support your team or whatever. No, it's not that. It's just that as an adult who's mature, I can look at the country as it is, the topography, the people, the culture, and say, I'm behind all that. There's so many nice people in this country that I've come to meet, and they're great. And they're caring and considerate, and they take care of each other, and they're good with the community. And I'm behind all those things. Those are wonderful things. And then you have some of the things about the broader systems, the inequality, the discrimination, the way the foreign policy works, the money, all those things I think are out of control, especially the political process. So I think to address those things is not anti-patriotic. In fact, the most patriotic thing you can do is when it's like taking the keys from a friend who's driving drunk. When somebody's out of control and they're doing things that are a long-term self-destructive, It's imperative. I think it's incumbent upon people to try to take the keys. You're not being a good friend when someone who's being so in that regard, that's how I look at the others and myself who try to at least point these things out. Unfortunately, and I guess I could be doing more, but many of us feel like there's not a whole lot we can do to directly influence it because of how the political process kind of keeps out people who aren't in the mainstream. The two-party system has created this impenetrable barrier for change, for reform, and that's really unfortunate. And a lot of the things that we're seeing in America have an impact around the world because of America's strength and influence. So if the American government is set up to favor a certain small group of oligarchs, militaristically minded people who have the idea to project power across the globe and negatively influence those who don't work with that group, I think that's not a force for good. It is a force that helps those people. But a lot of times the Americans are ultimately responsible for the money that's being spent. It's like a credit card without a limit, like an American Express Black Card or something. So all this money that gets allocated from the U.S. Treasury, the bill for that is with us. And the interest payments that are required to maintain that debt are paid out of our annual budget, and it's growing exponentially. So in the whatever the budget is, it's like a $4.5 trillion budget now. It's incredible. So much waste, so much abuse. And I do hope the Trump administration can tackle some of that. I think that's a good thing, whatever that means. I hope they don't cut things like social programs. I hope they cut things like military expenditures, these foreign wars, some of the excess subsidies that go to oil, gas companies, pharmaceutical companies, all the excesses that aren't helping the public, they go to help industry and the rich. I think those things need to be reformed. There's so many things that we could talk about as far as that goes. But part and parcel to that corruption, that core influence that allows things to be a certain way and not benefiting as many as possible, is what relates to the issues overseas, specifically Israel, Palestine, what happened in Syria, what's happening across the globe, where the U.S. and its multinational partners who have this ideology of neoconservatism, they want to be able to control stuff to their interest. And so the power structures are used to that end. And I've told y'all before, I say that the class of people who are pushing for this and participate in the spoils of these processes, I call them the transnational global elite, or even more importantly, the sociopathic serial accumulator class. Meaning that these are people, probably nice people to meet them personally. They're probably dressed well. They're probably nice to talk to. But when it comes to what they're doing, the way they use their money and resources, the way they use their political leverage, their power, they put those things towards ends that benefit them at the expense, in many cases, of others. Not always, but in many cases, which can include things like starting wars, backing wars, funding both sides of a war from a banking perspective, lending money to both sides, which has happened historically. But industries that benefit from war, it's pretty sick. It's almost like privatizing prisons, privatizing the healthcare system. The incentives are in the wrong places that don't benefit the community or the population. They benefit the interests that make money. We saw this with United Healthcare. The reason why people are talking about that is because everyone is frustrated with paying really large premiums for their whole life, for themselves or their family. And then when you finally do get sick after paying premiums for 25 years, the insurance company has the gall to deny your claim and put you through an amazing rigmarole to even fight to get your claim. If you're someone who's sick as an individual, imagine having cancer, going to get chemotherapy, being sick, nauseous, and then you have to call your insurance company to fight for them to cover the very thing you need to survive. Just imagine that for a second. I think the anger that comes from that realization is justified. Now, I don't recommend that it play out the way that it did. It's unfortunate that somebody seemingly was motivated by that, identifying this problem, and took it out the way he did. A lot of people hail that as heroic. I have mixed feelings. I mean, I'm not sure how extensive the guy's involvement was, and if he was the one who crafted all the evil increases in denials. But either way, he was at the helm. So unfortunately, he was held responsible in a very violent way. It'd be nice if we had a legal way to correct some of these corrupt practices. Unfortunately, like I mentioned before, there's a political wall that's been built around these set of industry-friendly governing practices that don't allow people to come in and change it. Even good people that come into Congress who identify these problems and would rather see them fixed, they're stuck in a bad game of raising money and party allegiance. If the special interests are able to get the party leadership to want to do their bidding for them with whatever means they do it, then it's impossible for a good-willed person to try to work through that. And therein lies the problem. There are some people in Congress, by the way, that try to push back more than others. They don't just give up. And they're held on the margins and many times targeted for being primaried, unfortunately. So, Z Justice, I'll tell you what I mean by mixed feelings. So, if you think about it this way, and this is, I know that when people say vigilante justice is not warranted and actually, murder is not okay under any circumstances, I tend to agree with that. At the same time, I have to think about the broader context. So in juxtaposing that concept of sort of always making it immoral to do something like that, you have the other side of it to look at. How many people going through that battle with their insurance company lost their lives because of the decisions being made, and they didn't have the financial resources to buy insulin or get other life-saving surgeries or drugs because of the games being played. And all that money that the insurance company would have otherwise had to spend on these claims, they're retaining for their shareholders and profiting immensely at rates that are sometimes double or triple the industry average to make more profits. There's an immorality there, I believe. It's the way the game is set up right now that's legal, but just because something's legal doesn't make it ethical or moral, right? So you have this one immoral act on the one side, which is the taking of a life. You have these other set of immoral acts, which is a system that protects an institution that it does things in ways that cause people to suffer and die in very large numbers. So when juxtaposing those two together, that's where I have the mixed feelings, if that makes sense. So, question here is, Z Justice seems to disagree. He says, you have to think about the bigger concept about when crime happened. Wow, just well, so we use force, question mark. Listen, Z, this is probably going to be happening more than not in the future, not necessarily with just the healthcare issue, but in general. When you create a system where reform by the masses is made impossible, like John Kennedy said, when you make peaceful resolution impossible, you make violent revolution inevitable. And I believe that every system goes through this if they decide to take things in the direction that America's going in. And the whole Western world is consolidating and increasing the wealth gap dramatically, especially in the last 25, 30 years. And it's getting out of control. It's beyond unthinkable. If you take like the top 10 billionaires in the country, they have more money than like the bottom 85 countries in the world combined, like 15 people. I think that's pretty insane. So if you want to call that morality on that one incident, you want to point that out, I mean, you have to look at the bigger picture and look at the oppressive nature of what's going on in terms of, any kind of decency in society, looking out for your fellow citizen. People are just falling off the margins. We had a natural disaster in the mountains of North Carolina, and the people there were just kind of left to deal with it. FEMA, which is our emergency response entity, was doing a lot of its work with helping migrants come in and get set up in hotel rooms with cell phones and food service and all this other stuff that was disrupting the communities into which they fled, as well as the cost. And then FEMA says they're unprepared and underfunded to handle the disaster relief. People look at that and go, wait a second, those priorities are out of whack. Why are we doing it that way? And I think those are fair observations to make. Warsan says, you were the winner, Chip, that debate. That debate was not even, put it this way. Like I said, about 2/3 into it, this was like a fight where the other fighter's getting pummeled and that the ref should have stopped it. Not to be arrogant, I'm just saying, when a fighter realizes that they're just overwhelming somebody with force, they don't want to hurt them anymore. And he just wasn't speaking to the issues. He wasn't taking on the debate in any form of good faith. He was doing a lot of personal attacks, sideswiping the issues, never answering the questions. It was kind of sad, actually. There's Hack. Great debate, 10-1. Yeah, I'm glad that was rough. Listen, my goal isn't to win. When it comes to these conversations, my goal is to have a good interaction and hopefully let the audience benefit from the exchange in some way, maybe pick up some new stuff or learn someone else's point of view. Ultimately, all that matters, though, is in that conflict, there's going to have to be a resolution. People fault me all the time for going up on the quote pro-Israeli panels, the Zionist panels, and speaking. And a lot of times I get treated in ways I'd rather not get treated. But the reason I do that, kind of stick my neck out there and try my best, is because that's what's going to be required to have some sort of conciliatory outcome. It may be that the people from the pro-Israeli side, given the advantages they have, both militarily, politically, etc., don't end up relenting on anything because they have the ability to act with impunity and do what they choose. And the outcome for Palestinians may be dire. It's possible. I'm hopeful, that the political climate and the international community, when coming together, will eventually be able to put some leverage on both the United States and Israel to change the trajectory of what's going on here. But right now, that hasn't happened for a variety of reasons, some of which is leaders being impacted by relationships with the West, deciding to try to stay in power over doing what the people would like in terms of resisting these forces. That's reality. That's where the world is. We do know, and I give credit to Mohammed bin Salman from Saudi Arabia, the current leader, when he said they were very close to signing a peace accord with Israel, mutual trade agreement. And when the October 7th attacks broke out, they decided they were going to stand on the side of supporting some sort of political outcome before they would then initiate that agreement with Israel. Again, I don't think it's going to happen, so I don't know where that's going to go. Maybe they'll change their position. But if anybody wants to come up and wants to talk about this stuff, listen, the way I run my lives, for those of you who haven't been up before, I don't denigrate anybody. I don't think you're an idiot for taking the point of view. I've studied both this issue, and I've had an interaction with people who are pro-Israeli to the extent that I could pretty much make their arguments for them, because I've heard every single one of them 1,000 times. So I don't disrespect somebody for feeling that way. I do disagree with them, and I try to point out the substance of why I disagree, not the personal malarkey that goes on. So in that regard, yeah, someone says, I think I need a cup of tea after all that. Yeah, take a breather. I really enjoy, listen, the other reason people say, well, why the hell do you talk about this so much, man? I just love talking about politics. For me, it's just, if I meet somebody on the street and the conversation's about just regular, it doesn't interest me at all. I like substantive conversation, not necessarily debate, but just digging deeper into issues and learning more and having meaningful exchanges. That's just something I really enjoy. So this is like a hobby of mine, if you will. Imperial Jaded said, we have watched a G-side on social media. What I do is, to be fair, I think it probably will be the determination eventually of the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, that the actions that Israel has taken inside of Gaza do constitute crimes against humanity and genocide. We already seen there's been a report recently issued by Human Rights Watch, which is a respected international human rights organization that covers things like Russia, China, other places. And they spoke to this issue as far as Gaza, and they did determine in their findings that the standards met by the definition of a G-side were indeed met by how Israel's conducted itself in this conflict. That's not the ICJ. That's an independent group. You can discount it. You can say they're anti-Israel. It's interesting to me that whenever the UN or other international bodies condemn Israel's enemies or issue a report substantiating claims of atrocities on 10/7, they're lauded as being they're being independent and accurate. But when anything comes out of the UN or other bodies that somehow is critical of Israel, they're biased. They're anti-Israel. They're anti-Jewish. They're anti-Israel, they're anti-Jewish, they're done by somebody who's anti-Semitic or some other nonsense like this. You can't have it both ways. The UN is not a buffet line of reports and findings that you can pick from. The International Criminal Court is not a buffet line where you can say, well, when they go after Vladimir Putin, that's legitimate, like Senator Lindsey Graham said. He lauded them on Twitter when they found Putin guilty of war crimes and issued an arrest warrant from the ICC. But when the ICC issued arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, who's overseen these set of atrocities, as well as the former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, the United States and Lindsey Graham wholeheartedly rejected the legitimacy of the court. Not only, of course, the rulings, but the court. Now, what do you say to that? That is the ridiculous double standard. That's the hypocrisy of the West, that when anything is issued against its adversaries, it's legit. But if it's levied back at them, it's illegitimate and doesn't apply. Do you see there's a little bit of a double standard there? The U.S. has actually threatened to invade the Netherlands, where The Hague is, which is the International Criminal Court, where they try people who have been accused of these crimes. that they'll invade it. It's called the Hague Act. They'll invade Netherlands to try to free anybody that the International Court arrests and tries to put through the legal process because they don't want to have the justice system applied to them. Sustain says a bigger picture involves Chip. Can you elaborate on that, please? Because I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that. By the way, if there's anybody who wants to come up, I'm not here to roast you. I'm not here to make you look bad. I'm just here to have a conversation. I don't bite. I'm fair. I'm polite. I let people talk. I rarely mute people unless they're going on and on and on and on. Don't stop. And, I let people say their piece. Somebody earlier in the debate with Hack that just finished up, while my opponent was speaking towards the end, somebody says, why don't you mute him? Why don't you interrupt him? I believe in letting people say what they want to say. The good news is that if they're rambling on and saying things that are nonsensical or obviously illogical or don't conflate with reality, you get to hear them talk. They're the best representation of the silliness of their point of view. So I don't like to interrupt people when they're saying those things, but they believe them. And as I always say, people have a right to believe what they believe. A lot of it is conditioning. Most people grow up in societies and cultures, and it's not their fault. We are products of our conditioning, our experiences, our uprising, our education, our family, our whatever religion you practice, the media systems we are led through, and rarely do people see something outside of that, which makes sense. So they're not bad people per se. They've been through a conditioning process which leads them to believe ardently in a series of half or mistruths that they can't see outside of, especially when somebody conflates their very identity as a human being with those beliefs. Then when you challenge those beliefs, you're challenging their very identity, which would be very uncomfortable, obviously. And that's what I feel goes on in the conversations that I have with many pro-Israelis. That's why I'm always really respectful and encouraging those who are Jewish, who have been pro-Zionist, that find their way to a different place through effort, research, and being open-minded, which doesn't happen too frequently, unfortunately. And people who have gone through that process, when they go back to engage with their family, friends, community, they're generally shunned because they're no longer just blindly supportive of the groupthink. And I really admire people who can think independently and critically, and who are willing to come to uncomfortable conclusions and stand by them. That takes courage, despite the repercussions. And I've had to endure a lot of slings and arrows from more of the mainstream community for being a radical thinker, that my ideas are radical. Well, maybe they are compared to the status quo. But I would argue that where the status quo, the lane that's veered towards, people in that lane in the culture, is what's radical. It's so incredibly, so many bad things accompany supporting that mainstream lane. And people think that's the safe place to be. They don't spend time, or they don't want to challenge their beliefs, understandably. It's more comfortable to be a part of the group. And that's how we're wired. But, This is what's great about society. In the past history, we've seen people who have thought independently. They used to think that the Earth was the center of the universe and the solar system. And it turned out that the sun was the center, a heliocentric model, and people were killed for this idea. That's how ardently people believe in certain things, that if you have a divergent view on a core issue that everyone seems to believe in, you're considered a nutcase and worthy of removal from existence. That's really bad. Okay, there's somebody requesting to come up. So Peace and Love is very eager to come up. So I like the name, by the way. Welcome to
What's up, Chip?
Hey, what's on your
I
mind?
think you know me from a different account and got bananaed for a week for absolutely no reason.
JY, J1?
Yeah.
Okay, how you doing, man?
Good. How about yourself?
I recognize your voice. I've heard you often. How's it going?
I'm good. I had a long night last night, but I'm better now. How about you?
Very tired because I've been through a marathon, but I like to keep running because I enjoy it. So what's on your mind?
Well, you ran a marathon today?
Well, sort of figuratively, I was on a live doing a debate with somebody from the other side as well as others for about 3.5 hours, which was nonstop excitement.
Oh, okay.
I
Figuratively.
was called, let me just give you the names I was called. I was called a member of the KKK. I was called a schmatzi. I was called an adherent of the mustache man. I support T-rism. I hate all Jews. What else? Anti-Semite. It went on and on and on.
I haven't said those things about you.
No, no,
Can I
no. I'm just sharing with you part of the marathon. I was hit with a lot of balloons on the run, so to speak.
can I give you context of why my account was banned and why I'm
Yeah, man.
supporting Israel now more than ever?
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
So I was on a pro-Palestinian live. Like I never go on pro-Israeli lives. I don't know if you know that. I only go on pro-Pallies and I go like 8-on-1,
Yeah.
just like you probably do the reverse. I'm sure, which I can respect.
I go where I can get up and talk about politics. Unfortunately, some of the pro-Palestinian places are not as welcoming, but I try to get on talk politics. I like to. So what happened to you?
Okay, so I was on a panel and I was just cordially debating somebody,
Yeah.
and out of nowhere I get kicked and a notification that my account is banned for a week. And I even see in the comments that like pro-Pallies were like, why did they kick him? He was actually one of the moderate pro-Israelis.
Right.
Jip, there was literally no reason for me to get a ban. Okay, then 2-3 days later, I go. This is really important. I really want you to understand why I think this way. 2 days later, there's this guy named On Point. I don't know if you know who he is or ever heard him speak, but he said, "I'm done not saying the quiet part out loud. I hate the Jays, their religion, them as a people. They should all be unalive. All these disgusting rhetoric about Jays. I'm not going to even finish it.
Who said this?
On Point." And he said
On
it again. He said it again yesterday too. When I
The name of the person's the nickname on TikTok is On Point.
On Point, yeah.
I've never seen them before. Okay, well that's horrible.
She's always on pro pally panels. So he said this, and I immediately said, okay, if they're gonna moderate my voice, and I'm moderate, then I'm gonna for sure report this guy for the first time in my life, and I've never reported anybody. Okay, so I reported him, and it comes back that no violations were found on him. And I'm like, okay, so maybe this is an internal TikTok thing where they want to ban the moderate pro-Israelis, but allow these disgusting people to spew their rhetoric. And I open up this new account, okay, and I open up a panel with I joined a pro-Pally panel again, and there was like two radicals, two moderates. The moderates wanted to speak to me on their own terms because the radicals wouldn't let me speak.
Okay.
I opened up my own. This is the last sentence, Chip. Sorry. I opened up my own live and had this moderate pro-Pally on my panel with me.
Yeah, yeah.
We spoke for less than 30 seconds, and my live was banned in 30 seconds.
Oh man.
So I'm like, okay, if TikTok algorithm is like clearly anti-Semitic, I know you think that's funny, but that's how.
Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry.
The whole world is anti-Semitic. Here we come with anti-Semitism.
I just told you why I thought that way.
Man, I was banned out of TikTok for
Chief,
weeks.
I'm sorry. Can we have decency? Can we have respect? Like, Chief, I mean,
But
this
we
is,
can, yeah, we can have respect, but you know that
can we
bullshit.
speak one by one? Can you mute this guy because when someone else is speaking, so he can take his turn? Like, can we be civil, Chief, please?
I was done. I was
It's
done.
really
I just
tough to get.
listen. I was done.
It's hard.
I don't play the
to get.
anti-Semite card. I don't call Chip anti-Semitic. I'm just telling you what I
No. You were
it,
speaking. I'm
it's
just wondering why someone else who appears on the panel starts to speak, and we are trying
Because
to
he's
use
lying.
your
Because
rules,
he's
Chief.
lying. You know,
No,
if
you
you
don't
let
have
somebody
right to
keep
speak. Wait
telling
for your
lies,
turn. Please, wait
guys.
for your
I had a
turn.
really long night last night. I'm not gonna lie. I threw up a couple of times. I have a
okay, you
massive
go.
headache.
You go.
I
You
don't
go.
have time to scream and shout today. If that's
You
what you
go.
want.
You go.
Yeah,
No,
let's do this, folks. As someone's speaking, if you can please remain on mute, and if you find something objectionable, like they're quote lying, make a note of it in your head or on paper, which is what I do. I keep notes, and then when it's your turn to speak, you can rebut it or whatever you want to do. Okay, thanks for
No,
being
I
here.
finished though, Chip. I appreciate you. I did finish. I wanted to hear your response to how I like that experience that I
Yeah,
had.
I'll do that, and then I'll pass the mic to Z Justice. Then we'll go to Palestinians, Jew, and then we'll go to Dingbats. That's sort of the order of the run. Please stay on mute if you can, Palestinian.
Okay, sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Yeah. So, that's if that to the extent that all those things happen. First of all, I'm sorry that happened to you. That's anybody who speaks that way to anybody in any situation. It's abhorrent and should never happen. So I'm sorry that happened to you. As far as the way TikTok handled it, I've had this happen too before. I rarely report people either because I think it's kind of like below the belt. But if somebody does something really egregious, like just way over the top, unnecessary, whatever it is, once in a while I've done that. And same thing that you encountered, they don't do anything. I'm like, how could they not have seen that conduct in the live? I don't know how the algorithm works or if it's looked at by a human, which I doubt. But a lot of times they don't catch that stuff, which is unfortunate. But this is an app. It's got 2 billion users or something like that, and they probably have to use systems that are less than perfect when it comes to adjudicating these.
Sure, it's done with AI. I'm sure. I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
a person. I'm just saying the algorithm is suspect. I don't know what you reported that person for? Was it a pro-Israeli person?
I don't even remember the circumstance. It's only happened twice. I've only reported somebody twice on the app, and it was for something that was really, really over the top. My memory sucks, but I would never do it unless it was severe. And
I know, but
no,
if it's a pro-Pally that you did that to, then it just backs up my point even more. But if it's pro-Israeli, then it counteracts it. That's why I'm.
well, I don't remember. A lot of times when somebody says things along the lines of what this person said on either side, if it's that outrageous, I'll report it just because I don't think that person should be on the platform behaving that way. But a lot of times the algorithms, they'll say no violations found, like you said. So
Yeah.
again, it's an
Okay, you can move on from this topic.
yeah,
And go
it's
to
an
the next
imperfect.
person.
My guess is again, and maybe your experience is different. I don't think it really takes into account one's background. I think it just doesn't do a good job of filtering out people who say effed up stuff.
Okay.
Is my guess. Let's go to Z Justice. Welcome, Z Justice. How are you?
Well, first of all, I just want to congratulate you on your debate. Number one, it wasn't a debate; it was a complete beatdown. So I don't think that, and for the sake of just 3 points is that I think the person was very emotional. He is a great human. He tried his best, but because when you're emotional, you can't rationally engage into a mature conversation, and then that is not going to come across well. But I just wanted to give feedback, respectful feedback, okay, to you again, because it appears that you are a respectful human. You try to look at both sides, and an HQ as well gave a sort of kind of a vision that everybody takes turns. So it's kind of democratic in nature, right? But just to point out to you, and it's a pure feedback, when you call Zubeida on the panel, and when the Zubeida's account was banned by TikTok, and officially, so that's a fact. This is not even a debate. And the reason why it was banned, you can look into it, but don't take my word for it. She used anti-Semitic slurs. She called Jews pigs. She said that she's going to take a rifle and go on the Gaza border under the emotional duress. Let's give her whatever that she wanted to say. She claimed once in my face that Jewish bankers are the reason why the Holocaust was committed. So a lot of stuff that when the other countries, so TikTok banned her. Like, I think bringing this person up to the debate, you already were winning. I don't think this was, you're pretty much bypassing the system, bringing her backup account so she can, set up and speed. So I think it decreases, in my opinion, just from the value of a intellectual, it decreases the value.
Any mods? If you could just do
It
me a
decreases
favor.
the value of a intellectual.
Yeah, I just want to let them. If this is administrative, if you
Sorry,
could,
yeah,
if somebody's saying like really violent cuss words
great.
or hateful things, you can mute them. Otherwise, please don't mute them. Thank you.
Wait, can you fill me in on what you guys are talking about right now?
There was a debate that was scheduled going back a little more than a week ago by a content creator named Hack, H-A-Q. He's an Australian gentleman, and he set it up with myself and a guy that I think used to go by Morocco Israel or Israel Morocco or something like that, but he changed.
Moroccan Zionist.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it wasn't MZ. It was somebody else, an older
Okay.
gentleman who is from Morocco, and he's Jewish, and he's a strong pro-Israeli. He has ties to some governmental entities. He seems to be connected with some people. He tends to say things like "you're going to get your due" or something to that effect. I mean, I hope he can't send the FBI out to arrest me or some shit. But we had a debate that lasted about 3.5 hours, and there was a process of statements back and forth. It was more formal than a typical TikTok.
So Z Justice is pro-Pally.
Z Justice here is pro-Israeli.
So why is he saying that you cooked the other guy in the debate? I'm so
Well,
confused.
what I think he's saying is that, and this is what I said during the debate, he wasn't really talking about the issue. The question of the debate, the topic was, is the war in Gaza justified? I don't remember one time and we had a chance to ask each other direct questions, and I don't think at any time during the debate he directly addressed the issues or the arguments. He made a lot of personal attacks that kept repeating over and over again. He kept saying KKK. Anybody outside who was critical or anybody, myself, was just KKK. So therefore, we're just not valid to discuss the issue or didn't know.
So you had 3.5 hours of time
Yep.
to answer a question that I could answer you in literally 30 seconds.
No, we were given in some cases 5 minutes to rebut, or 2 minutes, and then it went down to 1, and then other people were brought up on the panel, which kind of got chaotic as it typically does. So
Okay,
Peace
go
and
through the
love. If
panel.
you
Come
don't
back.
know, it was
Come back to me after. I wanna debate you on this topic of why it's justified.
well, let's do this.
but
Let's do this. Z Justice, did you want to share any more feedback, Z Justice, about Zubeida?
right. And then when you say that she's the most and I quote you because I wrote it down, that she's peaceful and she's honest. And, the words peaceful and honest do not come across when someone
I said
who,
calm. I said calm.
debated.
I said calm.
Okay, well, okay, calm. Hear it, calm, and honest. And then when you come to, and then you have another gentleman that actually showed you how uncalm can she be, and then her account is literally banned. That becomes an issue. And then on HQ, the hack, who is again runs fantastic establishment, but then again his mods are Taz, who is who's and I don't even want to go who Taz is, right? So Israeli community knows very well who Taz is according to according to her views and how she moderates things. So immediately we start to have an issue with objectivity of the whole panel and how it was skewed. Now you didn't need to work hard to win because your opponent unfortunately engaged into the emotional kind of bashing, which I don't agree with. I love him, I support him, he is my brother, he feels the pain, but I don't think this is the right way to solve the dialogue. But this was just my observation. Just wanted to give you that feedback.
Okay, yeah. Let me speak to that. So, I've watched Zubaida speak probably 40 times, maybe 50. I'm not sure exactly. Mostly when she's hosting, but sometimes when she's a guest on panels. She initially, early on in my TikTok career, came up a couple times before some other stuff took place where there's been a little more space between us. But I will say this. Of course, I've complimented people like Ryan and Ariel on the opposing side of how I feel about this issue for their knowledge and thoroughness and the way they present the issues and stuff as effective. And in that regard, notwithstanding some moments of anger and maybe some things that are superfluous, I think Zubaida, on balance, does a very good job of containing that type of and speaking to the issues calmly and effectively. That's my opinion. Maybe you have had examples of things that you've made you think differently, and that's fine. But she knows a lot. She speaks very clearly and well. She's able to articulate herself well. She's very good at quickly responding to other things that are mentioned in ways that I think give her the upper hand in most of her exchanges that I've seen.
Can I just tell you one example of why she's disingenuous though? Because I've spoken to this person.
Anybody can share their opinion. Sure.
Okay, yeah. Because I've spoken to this person multiple times, and she's one of the most disingenuous I've met. She compared the Havara agreement with the Jews made in Nazi Germany to when Haj Amin Hosseini basically hired SS workers and collaborated with H-Men. They said, oh, both of them collaborated with H-Men. And she basically thought these were two equals. If you know anything about both these events, you understand they're completely different. One was for the sake of their own survival, and the other one was for the sake to eliminate the Jews. Like, it doesn't make any sense, that comparison. Do you understand that, Chip, at least?
Well, I tend to disagree on one of those points. First of all, I know the degree to which things happen and the scale were far different. So in that regard, I agree with you. Where I diverge from that assessment is if you look at both involve interacting with the person that's diagnosed as the worst human being in modern history, and both use that relationship to their benefit to some extent.
How is the Havar agreement to the Jews' benefit?
And I also disagree that the Grand Mufti, when meeting with the H group, was formally trying to exterminate people. He was trying to avoid the excessive immigration into the territory, which he knew would inevitably change the circumstances. So he was trying to work with him to create agreements that would further his interests and would also help the mustache guy in the Balkans, which is where he needed help as well.
But if you were a Jew in Nazi Germany, you would sign the Havar agreement. I think any rational human being would want to get out of that situation.
I'm not saying that wasn't towards the interest of those who signed it. I'm saying they both interacted with and used the leverage and power of that individual who's now vilified as the worst guy in history to further their interest in certain ways, which is, I believe equally culpable, and I reject the argument that he was trying to exterminate the Jews, like the Grand Mufti. I don't think the historical record shows that. You can read recollections of their meeting, of exactly what they discussed, and it doesn't include anything about extermination.
They hired SS workers, Chip. What do you think those SS workers did? Like, it's so easy to put one and two together. I'm sorry, man. Like, you seem educated.
If that's the connection that you make, that's fine. I know there are a lot of scholars who have studied this that are way smarter than me, that have spent way more time than me looking into this, and they agree with the point that I raised, and they don't agree with your point of view. You're certainly entitled to maintain that point of view.
Can I jump in here too? Because as somebody who studied the Holocaust intensively, extensively, and has family who were unfortunately victims of the Holocaust, I'm Israeli. I lived in Israel for many years. I do not agree by any means with what's happening during the war. There's an incredible book that is incredibly resourced, documented, referenced. It's called Zionism During the Holocaust by Tony Greenstein. I highly recommend anybody pick up this book.
Let's write that down real quick. Zionism.
Yeah. There's actually 2 chapters on the Havar Agreement and peace and love. I'm sure that you have very intense feelings about it, and you rightfully so think that, you know, a lot of the compromises and sacrifices that were made by Jews in working with the Nazis don't even compare to some other historical events. I do think it's worth learning about what happened and who were the people who were actually making agreements and how it actually didn't benefit all Jews. It actually only benefited the Zionists who were lobbying to create a Jewish state, and not the Jews who did not want to leave where they were from and were forcibly exterminated. So I highly recommend reading
What do
this
you
book.
mean by what do you mean by forcibly? Listen, the Jews who were living there, if they didn't get off on whoever got off on the Havar Agreement, they were gonna. That's leading to their eventual unaliving. I don't think you understand what I'm saying. I think that these Jewish people who gave up all their goods, literally all their goods, in return just to get transported to Palestine, I think that's a great thing.
I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. I'm saying that the part of the agreement wasn't just, you know, giving up everything you had in order to be transported to what was known as what was Palestine at the time, and then get your money back in that money. I'm talking about the fact that the agreement also included the fact that Jews were not allowed to be sent anywhere else, which ultimately led to the demise of many Jews.
Right. That's the argument.
That's a lot. That's a big
Wait, hold on.
caveat
Why did
that
I'm
led
not
to
following
millions of people losing their lives.
I'm not
And that
following
was
that
a
last
bargain that the Zionists decided to make, and they felt like it was a fair trade.
I'm not following the last sentence. Why did the Havar Agreement in turn lead to the extermination?
I can open it for you. We can read it together if you want.
Are you saying that the Havar Agreement, if it doesn't get signed, that the Jews in Europe wouldn't be exterminated?
No, I'm saying that the Jews who ended up
Zionists
inevitably not being able to leave because they were only allowed to go to Palestine would have maybe had an opportunity to get to safety elsewhere, but they were only allowed to be sent to Palestine.
Can you tell me any place?
If I may
Wait, hold on
interject.
one second. Can you tell me any place?
Palestinian, you cannot. This is not your turn. Let them speak.
Dingbats, can you tell me one country surrounding them that they could have went to freely and peacefully?
I never said surrounding them.
So where were we supposed to go?
Okay, so
America
if you
wasn't taking
wanna,
them either.
if you actually want to learn, I'm not somebody that like debates opinion or emotion. Like it's really not
This is
useful
not
at all.
opinion. This is fact.
It's actually not fact. My family, actually, the ones who were able to escape Poland and Lithuania, actually went to the Caribbean. So
The Caribbean. And you think the
Caribbean,
Caribbean could
yeah.
fit 6 million Jews?
no, Jews went everywhere where they were allowed to go, where they were allowed to escape. But my point
point is-
being is that the people that you are like turning into heroes, that you know they did what they could, and it was for the best, because ultimately it really wasn't as righteous of an agreement as you think it is. It's really important to actually read the historical record on what the Havar Agreement actually was and how it disproportionately actually led to the demise and extermination of a lot of Jews.
That's
all I'm saying.
Substantiate your claim. Like, I'm trying to.
We can read this whole chapter together.
I don't need to read a chapter. I'll get you.
There's so many resources. It's actually insane.
You're saying what you're saying right now, Ding, is that if the Jews didn't sign the Havar Agreement, more Jews would have been saved, which is actually one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah, maybe you think it was dumb, but it wasn't dumb.
It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
But why are you speaking? The two people, please, see, this is
Z, can you
impossible.
stop being like?
We're
It's
trying
okay.
to
He can
learn
jump in if
something.
he has a
I
point.
wanna listen
I
to
had
you.
my family in the
Please,
East
can
Side.
you remind them?
Than anything with Palestinian Jews speaking.
It's okay. He can speak.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
let me
this.
please say something.
Yeah, why are you-
I don't know
Hold
if you
on, one
book.
sec, guys, one
I
second.
haven't read you.
Hey, I got to be allowed to be the moderator of my own panel. I'm sorry to step in. Z, I'll take care of this. If it gets too frenetic or crazy, I'll definitely try to mute people and moderate. Sometimes it's good to let the conversation flow a little bit and not like completely cut people off. Other times it gets crazy with overtalk, and that's when I usually tend to do that. So thank you for your contributions. Let me handle it from here. Go ahead, Palestinian Jew.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if you book. I'm sorry, I didn't get you. What's your handle? What's your name? I don't know how to address you because is it Dingbat?
Dingbats.
Ding. Yes. Hi.
Hi, Ding. Hi. So you live in you. Do you consider yourself a Zionist? Do you live in Israel now? Or?
I'm not a Zionist. I was raised a Zionist my entire life. I even made Aliyah and moved to Israel for many years. I don't consider myself a Zionist now.
But you still live in
That's
Israel.
just where I'm
Yeah,
at right now.
I'm the
I don't
same
live in
way.
Israel anymore. I'm back in the
Oh, good.
States though.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, I was actually born and raised in Israel. I was brainwashed like the other
Yeah, same.
peace and justice and Z justice and all those
Me
Zios.
too.
Yeah, I was really brainwashed to the point that it was like I was the most rabid Zionist. Those guys are kindergarten next to me in the view, next
Agreed.
to what I used to be when I was a Zionist. I served in the
I
Golani
hear you.
Brigade.
Me too.
I was a combat
You guys are
soldier.
proud of
I
this?
know. I think I
It's
know what I'm
sad.
talking about. Yeah, I don't know if your book covers the fact that there was a boycott by the world
Yes.
Jewry of.
It's right here.
So I cannot see. Okay. Oh, so okay. So what
The
happens is
boycott of
that
Nazi Germany.
okay. So the boycott basically made the Yazidis. They were on the brink of bankruptcies. You could not have bankrolled
That is so dumb.
the war without the money, and the money was controlled by who? By what everybody else says, by the Jews, by the Jewish Zionists. They control the money, and they broke the boycott because without the boycott, if the boycott was sustain itself, the Nazi regime would have collapsed, completely collapsed. It'll be broke. They broke the boycott in exchange for how many dingbats, Jews, that allow how many Zionists to move to Israel? I think
50,000.
60,000
Yeah,
or
I think it was 60,000.
60,000.
And not only that, the
and
Zionists
they were,
also
listen,
ratted
those
out the
this,
Jewish Bund, who were like the labor unions, like the Jewish labor unions, who
right,
were staunchly against the establishment of a Jewish state. They totally sold them out.
exactly.
The Zionists had no interest. They were not, I can tell, I mean, quote after quote of the early Zionist leaders saying that Zionism is not
Okay,
interested in
Ding, Ding. You
saving
guys are bouncing
individual
off each other now.
Jews.
Ding.
Exactly.
Wait, one second.
It
One
was
second.
never about
You guys
that.
can't.
That's
It's not
what we're
fair
I
anymore.
would,
You
told,
I
guys
would
but
bouncing
say
off
it
the
each other.
Zionists
wasn't.
One
the
second.
Zionists are the real
One second.
anti-Semites.
Ding,
The
Ding.
Zionists are the
The
real
important thing. Wait, hold
anti-Semites
on, guys. Stop bouncing
back
off each other.
then and today.
You're having two pro-Palestinians bouncing off each other.
I'm
It's not fair.
actually not even, I would say I'm just pro humanity. Like, I
So am
actually
I.
don't
So am I.
care about
I'm pro.
countries at
I'm
all.
pro. I'm
I
pro.
stand with
I'm pro
people, I
peace
don't
and love.
stand with
Ding,
governments.
can you listen to my question for a second? You just said
You're
that.
characterizing my opinion though, and I'm just setting the
No, no,
record
no, no. I'm
straight.
trying to understand you because it makes absolutely no sense to me. You said that if the Havara agreement didn't happen, so not only these 50,000 Jews would be saved, but more Jews would be saved, and the H cost wouldn't have happened. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
That's
that's what I'm
that's
saying.
so. Wait, hold on. So you think H-men did the H cost because of the Havara agreement?
The
No,
H could not
absolutely
do
not.
anything
When
What
did
are
without
I
you
them.
ever say
saying? What
that?
are you guys saying? It doesn't make any
I'm
sense.
saying that the Havar agreement wasn't this righteous, like, rock and hard place decision. It was a calculated move by Zionists who knew exactly what the cost would be of preventing Jews to go anywhere but Palestine. That's what I'm saying.
The
That is
Havara
my
agreement had
point.
nothing
Ding,
to
I
That's
do.
just
exactly right.
just heard
And
you. This is what you
without the
just said, Ding.
Afar agreement, I'll
You
go that
said
far.
that
There
the
would
more,
be no
more
Holocaust.
Jews
That's what I'm
died.
saying.
Ding, I don't know if you're actually Jewish. If you
You
are,
don't know if I don't have to prove that I'm Jewish to you.
I
I
know
can
if
show
you,
you my Israeli
I'm
passport.
saying if you are, it's really, really troubling that you think the
Do you
Havara
know
agreement.
how many
One
Jewish
second,
people
let me
hold
finish
my
my
opinion?
sentence.
This
let me,
book that
Troubling,
I
of
just
course, it's
showed you
troubling.
is
Matt,
Why
written
can't I
by a
finish my
Jewish
sentence?
man.
Why can't I finish my sentence? I said
I'm
it's.
telling you, I am
I
telling you
don't
that
care
the
if it's written by a Jewish man.
You're
I
a
don't
Jew.
care. If you're really Jewish, it's troubling that you think the Havara agreement was a reason more Jews were exterminated. That is the biggest load
it's
of
just a
bullshit.
historical fact.
It
That's
is.
what she just said. Thank you. That was good. Great.
okay, real
It
quick,
is.
everybody,
Me,
real quick. This is really important. Okay, so if you do some research on this and try to get a summary of the author's premise, in other words, the author is setting forth a premise to the argument. This is really important to understand. Now, you can disagree with his argument, which others have in the book reviews I looked at, but in this particular book review, from the book, this is the main theme that he's trying to transmit, which I think will make sense based on J1's question. Why would someone working on the Havar agreement sacrifice the lives of Jews? That makes no sense, right? The whole point was trying to get Jews out of harm's way to go to Israel, right? That's the commonly held belief. So let me explain where this varies from that belief and why the book makes this argument. This is what actually was going on. Okay, while Zionism realized the importance of exploiting the Holocaust to argue for proof of needing a Jewish state, despite the fact that all the victims were not Jewish during the Holocaust, it also determined that only Jewish people that could contribute to setting up the settler colonial enterprise would be allowed to enter. The concept of Jewish refugees as a humanitarian issue, which is what J1 said, derived from politics was no way of a concern to Zionist leaders. To this effect, Zionist leaders collaborated with the Schmatzis, striking deals which would enable masses of Jews to end up losing their lives. I'm not going to use their language. In return for preserving the lives of elite Jews, aka Ashkenazi Jews, for the purpose of colonial migration to Palestine. Quoting David Ben Gurion in 1933, Ben Gurion explained, if there was a conflict of interest between saving individual Jewish lives and the good of the Zionist enterprise, we shall say the enterprise comes first. Greenstein further argues that these elite Jews benefited from the Zionist political ideology and harbored no opposition. For example, the Zionist claim that Jews were unable to assimilate anywhere in the world was adopted by the Schmatzis in their persecution of Jewish people. Anti-Semitism, therefore, was a joint Schmittler understood early on that there was a distinction between the JEWS and Zionism. And while JEWs fought against Schmatzism, Zionists collaborated with Schmatzism and fascism. Does that make sense now?
Yes, thank you.
Again, Chip.
Thank you, Chip.
Again, all I'm saying.
Thank you, Chip.
All I'm
Thank
saying.
you.
Also,
This is
just
very-
to
hold on.
say,
Why is it fair that they get to bounce off you? You want my
the
response, right?
author who wrote this book is
Chip,
also a
Chip,
Jewish
Chip.
man. I
What
just
I'm
want
gonna
you to
tell
know.
What I'm going to tell
So
you.
here's what I want to do. So I'm going to
Okay,
let
I'm gonna
J1
drop this.
respond. By the way, let me just ask a question in general. I don't want to exclude Z Justice or our new guest, Montana. So J1, I'm going to let you do a response real quickly. Dingback, please stay on mute. J1, take a minute. I'm going to welcome Montana after you, and then we'll go to whomever wants to go next. Please go.
Okay, all I'm saying is that this Havara agreement did not lead to more unalivings of Jewish people. If anything, it saved Jewish lives. You guys say, and you guys, no, I'm finishing my sentence. I didn't interrupt you. You guys think that just because an Havara agreement was signed, that led to more extermination, like H-Man's like, oh, you know what? We signed an agreement. Let's go unalive them all. No, it was this grand plan all the time to unalive all Jews, disabled people, handicapped people. That was going to happen inevitably. So I don't think it's all good and dandy. There are holes in the Havara agreement. Sure, it could have been open
It cannot happen without
One
money.
second, bro. It could have been open to more people. It could have had opportunities for the poor instead of just the wealthy. I understand those historical contexts, but it did save Jewish lives. And for a Jewish person to say that the Havara agreement made more Jews unalive, that is disgusting. Look yourself in the mirror, please.
Maybe it's disgusting, but it's a fact. It's a disgusting fact.
Okay.
It's a disgusting fact.
You're
Many
just like
disgusting facts about the
you're an
Holocaust that you
H-Cost
would be
denier. You're
disgusted
an
by.
H-Cost denier. What are you guys doing? What are you guys
Wait,
doing?
I'm an
denier?
H-Cost
You're not
denier.
doing
I just
the
came
fuck
up
up.
on here and told you that 30% of my family was exterminated because of this
So you think
awful
Can I
world
argue
event.
with that?
And you
And
have
so
the
was mine.
audacity to tell
And
me
so
that I'm
was
denying
mine.
it
You
happened.
think the Havara agreement's because of that?
I don't think it helped. And I
But it
think that
hurt.
it was a terrible agreement
course
and
it
that
was
it was Zionist centric.
So the Havara
And you
agreement
won't
is why your
accept
parents
that.
were unalive. The Havara agreement was why your
Exactly.
parents were unalive.
Yes.
That's
please.
okay. So
That
you guys
and
are
many
so brainwashed.
other things.
You
That
guys
and
are
many
so
other
brainwashed.
things.
You guys are so brainwashed. Wow.
And
Ben,
yet
can
you
I
aren't,
get an
right?
opportunity?
Because
No.
apparently the Zionist leaders were heroes who did everything to save Jews, even though they allowed Jews to willingly get exterminated to create a state. You just heard Ben Gurion quoted himself saying, if it's between saving an individual Jew's life and the Zionist enterprise, the enterprise comes first. And I'm
Saving
the bad
one
guy.
Jewish life. One Jewish life.
What?
Individual
Oh, come
Jews. He
on,
said
that's
Zionism
semantics.
is not interested in saving individual Jews. It's interested in the Zionist enterprise in creating a Jewish state in Palestine.
Why do you think the Zionist enterprise were created to have a safe place for Jews? Are you guys
Are
that
you
60,000
joking?
Jews.
Are
Are
you
you guys
joking?
that dumb? Like holy
Are
shit!
you actually insane?
Now I know why you guys aren't pro-Israeli because you guys don't have more than 3 brain cells. I'm sorry, it's just crazy.
You
Okay,
think
listen.
that the state of Israel was
First,
created
hold on,
for
guys.
Jewish.
Hold on.
Please don't insult.
One
Don't
of
insult.
my rules on my lives is that people don't denigrate each other that way. So J1, please say you don't want to call people
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Chip. I shouldn't speak like
Listen.
that. But when
So,
she's saying that my family in the HCOS was exterminated because of our agreement, that's disgusting rhetoric.
well,
I don't
just,
I don't I don't appreciate it, and I get emotional when I hear that shit from a Jew.
I
You
hear
don't
that.
have to appreciate it, but it's a fact.
Hold on,
Yeah, you're a clown.
hold on, guys, hold on.
Can I
I
rebut?
will let you go in a second. I want to say this. Part of the experience that I've had having these conversations is that whenever any information comes to the fore that is uncomfortable to encounter, it's immediately dismissed as irrelevant or some other reason why somebody brings it up. Maybe it's hatred or whatever, bigotry. The argument in the book, you can disagree with the argument, but this author researched it extensively. He's probably the foremost experienced author. He's Jewish, and I'm assuming he's supportive of Israel, but she's talking about what actually heard based on the research in these communications. The overall argument is this, and I know this is hard to fathom, that a people would basically, quote unquote, sell out other people in regards to a bigger objective in their minds. But the Zionist leaders, is from what this author has gotten from his studying of what happened at the Havar Agreement, is that they decided that, in this case, just like H Group has decided that attacking Israel is more important than the short-term harm to other people in their community because it's a longer-term goal, the importance of establishing a Jewish state in historic Palestine was the primary motivator and was ahead of any other consideration at that time for this group of elites. And they wanted favorable treatment to gain access to leaving Europe, to not be harmed, regardless of whoever else may be harmed in the process. That's what the argument is. Are you saying that's unacceptable and never happened and couldn't be the case?
Okay, so you read me an internet source. Can I read you one too, or no?
Yeah, of course.
The question though.
But is it? Here's what, Jay. Let me ask you this question though before you.
Can I
Sure, what's your
answer
question?
your question?
Well, real quick. Let me ask you this question, Jay. One before you. Get
Please,
back.
can I just rebut?
Yeah, just one sec. One last question.
I didn't hear his
Is
question.
it-
You can
is-
answer it.
Is it possible that the author's conclusion could possibly be accurate? Yes.
I'd have to read his sources and where he got his information. And
Well,
sure, obviously.
I just gave you my listen.
Everything is
I'm not
fine.
lying to you. I gave you the summary of the author's premise. I'm just saying, based on that premise, is it possible his premise could be accurate, or is it impossible for his premise to be accurate?
Can you summarize that premise one more time? Sorry.
The bottom line is this: the people who are trying to aspire to have the state established in Palestine, that was going to be a Jewish state, the people wanted favorable treatment to a certain subset of Jewish people, mostly Ashkenazi elites, quote unquote, over the vast majority of the Jews that lived in Europe, putting their interest of establishing the homeland ahead of the potential safety of the lives of other Jews that would later be affected by the mustache man's great plans.
I partially disagree. I half agree with you. I understand what you're saying. Can I read you this right here, please?
Of course, go ahead.
Okay. Under the agreement, Jewish immigrants had to hand over their possessions before they left Germany, and the proceeds were used by a company specifically set up for the purpose in Tel Aviv to purchase German goods for sale in Palestine.
Right.
The proceeds of the sale were then paid in Palestinian currency to the immigrants in Palestine. The agreement was immediately criticized from all sides. The Zionist Federation were accused of collaboration with the Yazidis, and the Yazidi authorities were criticized by fellow Yazidis for helping Jews when their policy was to solve the Jewish question.
Right.
Still at this point, but please, let me just finish this. Still at this point in time, both sides saw no doubt saw potential benefits for themselves in an agreement. For the Zionist Federation, it was a way to save Jews from the claws of an increasing hostile regime and to attract them to Palestine, while for the Yazidi state, signing an international agreement was further proof of its legitimacy, broke the Jewish movement of boycotting German goods, and helped the recovery of German exports at a time when the German economy was still in the depth of depression. So yes, I do understand that last point, that quote unquote this boycott was broken and whatnot. But I think either way, Germany would have done what they did and expanded and took over and unalived people anyways. So that's why I don't think they
Don't
said,
disagree there, J1. We don't disagree there.
Bankroll.
So then where do we disagree?
I think I think what our fundamental. So I hear you. I think that the mustache people would have done what they're already doing what they were going to do, and they wouldn't like the Havar agreement wasn't the thing that was going to stop them. I hear you, but what I'm saying is that your idea that Zionism and the Zionists and moving Jews to Palestine was the saving grace for so many Jews isn't as righteous of a thought or the movement as you think it is, because the German Zionists who were exempt from all of the persecution that German Jews who were vehemently against Zionism, which I want to remind you that German Jewry overwhelmingly rejected Zionism. They thought of it as the enemy from within. This is quoted and heavily researched. I'm not making this up. that the Zionists had no interest in the welfare of Jews as a whole more than they had an interest in establishing a Jewish state in Palestine. That is where we fundamentally disagree. You think what they did was
Okay.
righteous, and I think it was self-serving of a Jewish state at the expense of Jews in Europe.
Can I?
So let Z Justice speak because he hasn't spoken, but I just want to say one thing. I never said it was righteous. I never said it was an amazing thing. All I did, Chip knows this, all I did was saying the comparison between that and what Haj Amin Husseini did was disingenuous by a certain person. That's the only reason this came into a talking point. I never said it was righteous, by the way. I just said it was.
Ingrid, if I may say something, I think that without the
I just want to
agreement,
respond to Ding.
there wouldn't be Holocaust. I'm convinced of that because
Just to
the
speak, he hasn't
Nazis
spoken the whole
could
time.
not have bankrolled a Holocaust if there was if they had no money. The people who were in control of the money was the Zionist Jews, and they gave them the money to do whatever the fuck they want to do in exchange for 60,000 people moving to Israel. So I would say,
Please,
I think
please
you
don't respond to that.
point a little too quick. I do not think that the Holocaust would have happened without the Avara agreement. That's my point.
Let's
So
Z-
dumb.
and then
That's
we'll
so
go.
dumb. Chip, how do you support that? You think the H?
J1.
Please don't respond to that.
We have to let other people speak. Go ahead, Z.
Okay.
Z, you want to respond?
So again, Ding, this is Ding. I have like I want to respond to you. Can I respond to your points?
Yeah, let's talk.
Yeah, let's do it. So first of all, you did state it that the Zionism was rejected by a lot of Germans. So I just want to make by German Jews, but I just want to make a point that was rejected on a religious basis because a lot of Jews at that time were religious, based on a deep religious sentiment. Zionism or returning to the state of Israel is haram, so to say, in Judaism, because we're not supposed to even to be there until the third temple is born and until the Messiah is back. But however, this is not on humanitarian basis. So I just want to make it sure. This is not because someone really thought ideologically that was the wrong idea. People who actually looked at the lives lost didn't believe that way. Now let's come to the second point. You stated also yourself,
Z.
which
I just want to say one thing. German.
I hope.
Yeah, and then you can go to your second point. I just want to go point for point here. There's a book called The Transfer Agreement by Edwin Black, okay? I just want to say that anti-Zionism was one of the few Jewish topics that Reform Orthodox and cosmopolitan or secular Jews and ghetto Jews all agreed on. This wasn't just off of a religious basis. Even wealthy secular Jews, working class Jews that lived in the ghettos, the Reform Jews, the Orthodox Jews, Zionism was always a German Jewish taboo. This is not the case that it was solely on a religious basis. The Orthodox Jews disagreed with it for religious purposes, but even the secular German Jews who were wealthy and not wealthy, it was a taboo. This is well documented in history. It wasn't just a religious ideological difference.
Again, I would just say again, if you take a look at the population of German Jews at that time, you mentioned Reform Orthodox or not, they're still religious entities. Zionism is another religious component. Zionism.
The secular
so are you saying that the
working
working
class Jews in the
class
ghettos,
is not
they
secular?
didn't support Zionism either.
Okay, we're gonna have to look at the sources then, and we have to
I
discuss
gave
how
you
many
many.
do not support.
This book is well resourced. I can give you many historic sources to say the German working class, the German Bund, the labor unions fucking hated the Zionists. They got sold out by the Zionists. And these were not religious people. They were Germans. And they didn't understand why Zionism was kowtowing to anti-Semitism and saying that the only place that Jews belong is in some fucking Middle Eastern country that they don't know shit about.
Now that
And I
about that question,
I'm going to read the book. I'm going to read the book by David Black, as you mentioned. I'm going to order it today because I want to educate myself, because we cannot wait. The only way for me to have a conversation with you if I look at the source myself, see what we are talking about, because I have to look
Good.
the book.
Good,
But
good.
to your second point is that, and I hope that you agree that maybe if we take for the premise for your statements, right, that the more Jews died due to Yasbara agreement is different than this guy, Palestinian Jew, who is sitting down there, who is stating that, no, this is not more Jews died. This is the reason why the Jews died. So I just want to make it clear and ask you a question. Do you think the more Jews died or the reason why the Jews were executed in the Holocaust was because of the Asbara Agreement. Was that
I
the
don't
reason
agree
why
with
we
that.
won?
No, I don't agree
What?
with Palestinian Jew there. I don't think the Havar agreement would,
Thank you.
if it had never happened, it would have
Thank you.
saved all the Jews, but I do think it disproportionately aided the Nazis. Yes, I do agree with that. It did disproportionately aid the Nazis in continuing their extermination of us in Europe, but I don't think without it, we wouldn't have met our fate. It probably would have taken longer or by different means because they wouldn't have had enough money, but stopping the boycott on Nazi Germany 100% gave the lifeblood back to the Nazis to continue their extermination of us with the support of elite Zionist Jews who had an ulterior motive of wanting to create a state. And so they did weaponize our harm because they were like, look what's happening to us over here. This is why we need a country. But they're secretly funding and helping the people who are doing this to us. It's fucked. The whole thing
That's
is
the
fucked.
problem. That's the problem. Is you think it's like
I appreciate the fact that you said that in your opinion it wouldn't have happened, but in practicality, they cannot commit a genocide with no money. And if your money sources are shut, you cannot execute your plan. I mean, it's a big fantasy that the Yazidis had about exterminating all the Jews, but they couldn't have actually carried it out without money that the Jews gave, that the Zionists gave them. They would not have executed their plan. They could not have executed their plan. There's no way. You cannot do it with sticks and stones. You know, you need money, you need resources to take on such a monumental undertaking of exterminating a people. And the Zionists
Let me ask
gave
you a
him
question,
those,
Palestinian
the
Jew.
Zionists gave him those tools
Yeah.
via money, with money. That's it. That's what happened. They
Palestinian
could
Jew, let me
not
ask you a
have
question. Are
executed
you
the
are you
plan
saying
without
that?
money.
Are you saying these things based off what you think, or do you have
No,
any?
based on
Wait, 1 second.
look.
I'm gonna ask you a question.
Read the
It
book.
is well
Hold on 1 second.
documented.
1 second.
I say it based on my
Let me
life
finish my
experience. I
question
know
for
it
you.
takes
Let me
money to
finish my
do
question
shit.
for you, please.
Based on my life experience, I know it takes money to do
I'm asking
shit.
you if you know the economy in Germany pre-Havar agreement compared to post. Do you know the numbers?
Yeah, it was in ruins. It was in
Okay, so
ruins.
what was
That's
their
why
GDP? What was their GDP in 32?
that's why Mustache came to power, because
What
the
was their
economy was
GDP in
collapsing.
32? What was their economy like? Do you know?
It was after it was a worldwide depression that the world came out of, and people were unemployed. It was a devastated economy, and that's why the H-man got elected, just like Trump got elected now, because the economy is in the shit. So that's exactly it.
And the
Trump
Havar
is
agreement made
is
their
new
made their economy
mustache
good.
man in America. That's what happened. Yeah. The economy was bad. The economy was bad, and the people that controlled the money were the Jewish bankers, the Zionist Jewish bankers, and they gave Mustache Man the money to carry his plan. Otherwise, without the money, it would have been a fantasy that I don't know that he would ever be able to execute without the money, because it takes money. You know, in
Peace and
life,
love. This
everything takes
gentleman,
money.
peace and love.
Yeah.
Peace and love. This gentleman yesterday on the live said that the reason why the Jews died in the Holocaust were because of the Zionism, and the Zionism was the
I
reason
know
why
he's
the
a
Jews
complete
were. He
radical.
just verbatim said that the reason why the Jews
Exactly.
were killed
I
because
don't
of the
deny it.
Zionist
He's too far
agendas
This
gone.
is
and the
He's
what
too
I
far
said.
Holocaust.
gone.
Yes,
That's
that's
what he
exactly what I
said.
said.
Yeah,
I
he's too
don't
far
deny
gone,
it.
Justice.
I
There's
don't
no
deny
point
it. You
of
heard me
debating
right.
somebody like
Thank
this.
you. Done.
You
That's
heard
we're
me right.
finished.
I don't deny it.
There's no point to debate somebody like you though. Like you're so far gone.
No,
Maybe there's
exactly,
no
man.
point in
This
Here's the
debating
thing
somebody
though,
like you.
so are
You know,
you. I think
I'm
that
not so
both
far gone as that.
rabid
would have been
genocide
arrested
on
in
maniacs.
Turkey.
Why are we
We just told you
debating
we'll read your book.
rabid genocide on
Guy.
maniacs? Why are we
We
debating
just hold on, wait, Palestinian Jew. With
inhumane
all respect,
people like you?
with all respect, we're talking to Dingback because she's a little more moderate than you. Okay, we said we're gonna read your book. We said we're gonna look into the things you said. How are we so far gone? This guy is hell bent on what he thinks.
So are you though. Even
No,
in the
I'm not.
beginning,
I've changed my mind.
you
I've changed my
questioned my
mind
Judaism. You said, as somebody who is Jewish enough to become an Israeli citizen,
because I
you
thought I
told me
misheard
that I
you.
can't be Jewish because what I'm saying is just so far fetched. Even though I'm
I
quoting a
thought you
book
said
also
Ding,
written
Ding.
by a Jewish Israeli man.
I
I
thought
have
you
another
said.
book by
I
Tom
thought you
Seged,
said
A State
World
at
War
Any
II.
Cost. the autobiography of the life of David Ben-Gurion, who goes into detail about how David Ben-Gurion totally sold out the European Jews. And you had the audacity to call me basically an anti-Semite who's pretending to
Not at
be
all.
Jewish because what I'm
Ding,
saying
I
is
thought
so
you said,
crazy.
I thought you said what Palestinian Jews saying is that because of the Havar Agreement, World War II and the HoloCaust happened. And if you did say that,
No, but
I'd
it
call you a
seems
fake
like you
Jew.
also
So
have an unwillingness to accept some very uncomfortable truths about this ideology and this political movement that you seem to herald as like the best thing for Jews, which historically has been the worst thing for Jews.
Zionism was the worst thing for Jews.
About what you are talking,
I think Zionism is a very bad thing for Jewish people.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry
it's
you
also,
are wrong.
it
I'm
was worse
sorry
than
you
the
are
Roman
wrong.
exile. It was
Israel
worse than
is
the
the place
HoloCaust.
of the Jews, and you cannot
Oh,
deny
I'm not
this.
arguing that. I'm not
Okay,
arguing
don't
that
deny
Israel
this.
isn't the homeland
And
of the
look
Jewish
at your
people. I'm saying the modern
religion.
state of Israel is 100%, and the Zionist movement is terrible
Look,
for Jewish people.
don't say Zionist is
So
it's
tell
a
me,
bad
so
movement.
Ding,
It's a good
tell me a
movement.
period of time and a
And
place.
she
Gee,
makes
that's
justice
a
to the
good
Jews.
that's a
It's a
good
good
place for
question.
me to
One
jump
at a
She
time,
in.
makes
please.
justice to the Jews move.
That's a good place for me to jump in because
You
I
cannot
The host
the
say
wants
only
to
no,
thing
no.
I
I
say it
want to
cannot.
1
say,
second.
Let Montana
Dod,
speak.
Please give me
the only thing I want to say,
to finish.
the
I
only
didn't
thing I want
interrupt
to
you.
say,
Shnia,
the
1
only thing I
second.
want to say,
One sec, guys. One sec.
I've been
So
sitting here patient and then it's
hold
perfect
on, Montana,
timing.
one sec, one sec. What I want to be able to do is to direct things so we don't talk over each other.
I agree, but I'm not going to let someone shush me.
That's okay. I'm not going to shush you. So Montana's
Who
been waiting
shushed you?
patiently to speak. And then
Dingbat.
hold on one sec.
Sorry, I was saying shoulda Dod, the guy
Hold on.
next to you. I'm sorry, Montana.
Guys, one sec. So here's what I'd like to ask. Everybody, please go on mute. Everybody right now, and then we're going to, other than Montana, we're going to give Montana, and then I don't know the name of who's to the right of Montana. What name do you want me to call you, sir?
Good.
Dode?
Dod.
Dode. Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll do Montana first, then we'll let Dode go, and then we'll get some responses. So please stay muted while Montana's talking. Go ahead.
No, I find it interesting. I was listening to the conversation, and I think everyone can have opinions about things that happened 80 years ago, 100 years ago, 200, 300, 400 years ago. But we live in today's world and we have to look forward, not backwards. And I don't foresee that the state of Israel is going to be abolished. And with that being said, what's the solution? And if the solution is to abolish it, then you would anticipate war. And I don't think, and I just think that as opposed to debating the past and why things happen, we have to look at reality and how things are today, and look forward. And I look at what happened on October the 7th. All the justification of the world. Hamas knew the reaction, the H group that they were going to get. I think any kind of rage and anger should be focused squarely on them, because they knew exactly what they were going to do, what was the result is, and that's my opinion. And I
God
think
bless you.
I think Israel. If you think that Israel's going to be gone or dissipate or disappear, it's not going to happen. So I would suggest people focus on how to get peace with the state of Israel in place, because it's not going away anytime soon.
Well said.
Yeah, and I think you can look backwards and we can argue till we're blue in the face what happened 100 years ago. I mean, damn, I'm a Swede. I think we were down there at one point. Do I get it? 500, 600, 700 years ago. But whatever, it happened. And arguing motives of people hundreds of years ago is kind of a joke to me.
Agreed.
Anyways, I'll leave it at that. I think
The
that you should
Holocaust
focus
was
on
not hundreds of years ago,
today and move
respectfully.
forward. Yeah, I will agree with that statement. But individual motives of people. But what I will say is this: I think everyone would be better served starting right now and living in reality and moving forward, and try to find a solution. That's it. I don't think looking backwards is going to solve this problem.
Well, Joe, okay, let me address one thing to that, and then we'll go over to Dodd. So one of the arguments, I've had more conversations with people who are pro-Israel than probably many people in the world. And one of the common themes that I hear constantly, I think J1 is kind of referring to this, that Israel is this really critical place for Jewish people, both historically from pogroms as well as what happened in World War II, which is one of the most disgusting things in modern history, as a safety place that it has to exist, it has to be there, and it's only a small sliver. And why do these people just want to just leave us alone and let us be? That's kind of the angle that I hear. Now, what's being discussed in the book that talks about the Havar, and we can fast forward to present after I say this. That argument is not as simplistic as that. In other words, there's more to it, that the founders of the state, these Ashkenazi elite Zionists, as the book refers to, were willing to not worry as much about the safety of the collective Jewry in Europe in exchange for safe passage to historic Palestine to enforce a racist ethno-state in the region that would require the expelling of Arabs to create, knowingly so, as noted in Ben Gurion's memoirs. This was like, it's almost like if America was under attack, the people that have most of the money in the country make an agreement with the Chinese who invaded to go to a separate place down in South America, and the rest of the Americans get enslaved in camps or get killed. That's kind of what happened. And that's what the argument of the book is, just so you know.
And I can respond to you and say that if my house is burning and I'm dying and I have my child, I would put my child on a boat and say, listen, I'm going to go and burn there right now, but I'm going to save my child and put everyone in front of me. Just you go ahead, you go save the next generation, you establish our land, because guess what? Since the generations they're killing us, they're gassing us, they're going to come here and they're going to kill us. They were gassing and killing us in Egypt since we were slaves. They were executing us in Russia because we were praying. They killed us in Spanish Inquisition. They murdered us all over the place, time after time after time. And I don't disagree with Ding, and I thank her for her opinion, because I'm going to get these books and educate myself. But even if so, the decision to establish the Jewish state wasn't a bad decision, perhaps morally wrong decision, perhaps so, would have resulted in a saving and establishing a state that would allow today, and a state, I mind you, that the state in 70 years Israel produced by the Zionistic vision, things that no other state produced in the world. We are the leaders in the AI. We are the leaders in the CEOs per capita. We are the leaders in the inventions. 20% of us are right now on the Jewish Nobel Prize nominees. Israel is a light in a tunnel, because if we would not come to the Palestine, this land was full of peasants, because this is what they were, as sheep worshippers. We created a state and a solution. Whether that doesn't mean they don't deserve life. That doesn't mean that they should not be treated with respect. But what the idea, the savory of the Jewish identity became possible. But the reason is why the guy who sits behind and states that, oh, you were killed because of the Hasbara agreement, is the most vile thing to say. Because in reality, we were killed for millennia just because of our ethnicity. This is a eugenics genocide that's been happening by the world on us for millions of years. And
Not
until
a million.
today, and I will still stand by saying, and I'll argue, Chip, that, and I will argue and I will say that Israeli IDF is the most moral army in the world, period.
Don't go there.
And I can debate that, and I can prove it, and I can sustain it with every fact possible 24/7.
Hey,
That's
Chip,
an issue. One sec. That's an issue I would love to get into as the panel we go through our issues. Let me address I'm going to use the word narrative, because I have a narrative, you have a narrative, everybody has a narrative. So I'm not doing it in a disparaging way. The narrative that you just shared is one that I consistently hear, especially emphasizing on the accomplishments of the people that arrived in the region and all the things. So I hear it all the time. Those don't negate, though, the historical intent of the founders. There are things that have happened since. This idea, and Miko Peled, the general's son who wrote that book, who has since gone out and been very critical of Israel and Zionism, has said that this idea that these Jewish settlers came, or these immigrants came to the territory where a bunch of, kind of underdeveloped, kind of less intelligent people, which is what that infers to, were incapable of doing these things that now the Jewish people came in and did, and how wonderful they are and how smart they are. And I agree, they're mostly smart people. But this idea they came to this empty place and kind of made it bloom is a myth. Did they do things to develop as the time went on with the development of fossil fuels? Yes. Did they well organize and achieve a lot? Yes. Were they smart and very intelligent in how they pursued their interests? Absolutely. But here's the main argument that kind of is juxtaposed to what you said. What they chose to do had several repercussions. One, they made the choice in Europe to basically promote what they wanted to do and have their group exclusively allowed to make safe passage, which you can say may be justified based on the overall conditions, fair enough. But they were willing to basically let who they looked at as peasantry Jews, just like you just said about the people in Palestine. That's how they viewed the other Jews. They're not as good as us. It's kind of a supremacy mindset. And then they knew coming into Palestine, and this is written in the memoirs of Ben Gurion and Weizmann and others, they knew they were going to have to forcibly displace Arabs in order to establish this Jewish ethno state. So the intent, yeah, all those accomplishments, hey, congratulations, but they were done on the backs and expense of others. That's the point that the author's trying to make, and that most people try to juxtapose the argument of this splendid light for the world. It's not too much fun when somebody comes in and kicks you in the side of the head, kicks you out of your place, and says, "We're coming in regardless of what. Go deal with
You
it."
took the narrative of the Palestinian.
Well,
But Chip,
If
can I ask a
excuse me,
question?
Chip, if I
Yeah,
read
go
the
ahead.
Ben Gurion memorized, one minute. If I read the memorized Ben Gurion, he came in the 30 to the Muslim and the Christian. Now you don't have Christian almost because there are discretion from the Middle East. You don't have Christian also in the Middle East. But when the leader of it was a Christian leader, it was a fan Arab leader, also Muslim, and they said to Ben Gurion, in a way, Ben Gurion said to them, "We take only 30% of the land. You take all the land." And we come together we develop this country together. They look at him like he's an alien. And after this meeting, and Ben Gurion understand what is the future. The future is only war. It's a war, and the Muslims don't want a peace. They want a war.
Oh,
Actually, when they tried to conquer Israel in 48, they didn't think about Palestinian. They think Egypt, Lebanon, and also Jordan and Iraq wanted to cut this country to pieces, take to every country some pieces, and that's all. They didn't think about Palestinian. Palestinian was not exist in their mind. Palestinian
it
it's
existed.
Muslim. Palestinian it's Muslim.
So
Palestinian it's Muslim.
existed.
They are part of the Muslim world. They are a Muslim. That's all.
Yeah,
They are not. You don't have
Israel
Palestinian.
didn't exist. before
Existed.
48,
I
so
deny Palestinian. You don't have Palestinian.
I just wanted
You
to
can
say there was a
make
guy. There was
propaganda
a
with
guy who
Qatar
said
money.
there was a
You
guy
can
who
do what
said-
you want,
Yeah, sure.
and
There was
nothing
a
will
guy who
happen.
said that the peasants,
You are,
the only
you know,
peasants in the
You
Middle
guys,
East
you guys are
Israel.
arguing.
you don't give me to finish. Also, you are
Yeah,
not
yeah,
Democrat.
yeah,
Also,
yeah.
you
Chip,
because you
can we go back
trouble
to
me.
Montana's point? I
Yeah,
think
I
but
just
Montana,
think you guys are
Palestine-
arguing about trying to put ink back in a pen.
guys, hold on a second. So one thing I have to do on the panel is try to have an orderly panel, because otherwise when people talk over each other, nobody can really hear what anybody's saying. So I want to hear what each of you have to say. So I want to summarize the point that I just heard from Dodd, and then I want to let Too Fast respond. So Dodd's argument, David, sorry, David, I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
No
Thank you.
dog.
So David's argument is that there wasn't any Palestine. It was a combination of Transjordan and Syrian territory and Egypt, and that the people in the region really don't have a claim to being a people because they were others and they weren't there. That's his argument, and that therefore they don't really have a claim on the land, presumably, and so therefore what happened was acceptable. So what would you like to say, Too Fast, in response to that argument?
I mean, that's just a bunch of nonsense that they want to sit there and say there was no Palestinian. I mean, come on. I mean, that's just another way to, you're going to tell them who their identity is and they weren't existing before 1948. I mean, there's proof, there's videos, there's maps, there's presidents. I forgot what his name was, Chip. Maybe there was a U.S. president who even talked about the Palestinian state before 1948, the creation of Israel. I'm not too sure
The
what his
Mufti,
name was.
the Mufti Asani, yeah.
No, the U.S. president,
Oh, Harry Truman.
Harry Truman. Yes, he even said it. So I don't even understand why it's just pointless when you keep saying there was no Israeli state before 1948. Now, the guy that called the Palestinians peasants, the only peasants in the Middle East are the Israelis. Okay, that's number one.
Why?
Yeah,
Why?
sure.
Why? Real quick.
Yeah,
Why?
calm down.
Why do you?
Control yourself.
Hold on. Why do you say?
Oh, my bad.
Too fast. Why do you say that? What do you mean by that?
They're peasants, man. All they want to do is be dominant. They just want to stay dominant. They want to be the dominant force in the region.
He
They
knows what
want to.
peasant means.
They want to.
That doesn't make them. That doesn't make them peasants.
Yeah, I
though.
don't think you know
Peasant
what a
is
peasant
like
is.
No, no. Let me finish.
Okay.
They wanna expand their borders. They wanna start conflicts. They wanna
That's not a
occupy
peasant, bro.
people. They don't go by no international law. They think they're above international law. They think they're above like that's the issue, right? Like even if you sit down on the table with the Israelis, they don't want to negotiate. No, it's our way. It's basically
You know
it's
what a
our way or
peasant
the
is, Too
highway.
Fast?
Yeah, I know what
You know
peasant
what?
means, bro.
It's a
I know.
farmer. It's a social status farmer. So what the fuck are you saying? These are peasants. You don't make any sense, bro.
No, he doesn't know the meaning of the word peasant.
Yeah. So he doesn't know
probably.
what so why is he talking about it then?
Presents or peasants?
Peasant is a farmer, like a low social status farmer. You're talking about them being
Bro,
colonial.
why is it low? Those
Okay,
peasants feed
my bad. I
you.
misheard you. All right, anyways,
Why is
listen.
it low?
I never
Why
said
is
Brothers
it
peasant.
can
so
talk.
I never
I
said
thought
that.
you meant like they're peasants, like
One at a
annoying
time.
or like.
No,
Okay, I
I
misheard
never
you.
said the word peasant, by the way. But when Z Justice did, he's talking
Do
about them
justice
being
to it.
farmers.
Okay, I misheard you then. Okay, but anyways, what I wanted to say, and then there was another guy earlier. He was talking about that Israel is gonna stay there. I don't see no future in the Middle East with Israel. Honestly, you're
So you're
surrounded by
delusional.
nothing but enemies. By the way,
You're ignorant then.
You're delusional. You're
You
delusional.
Hold on,
know
guys.
what you
One at a
guys.
time.
You know what the Zionists like to keep using? 1948 war, 1967 war. By the way, weapons are more advanced nowadays. You know, drones. I mean, you can't even. Did you see the video of the drone? Literally, one of your helicopters was flying next to the drone. You couldn't even stop it, bro.
They have
Like
nukes, bro.
weapon,
We're talking
yeah,
about
nukes.
drones.
Here
You
we
have
go,
nukes now.
nukes. Yeah, you have this.
Border with
What are you gonna
friends.
do?
Guys,
Nukes. Okay,
guys.
the whole Middle East can grab a hand on the nukes if they want. You know that just as much as I
No,
do.
they won't.
Anybody? What do you mean? No, they won't.
Chip, bring
No,
your
they
side back
won't.
to reality, bro.
Listen,
Hold on, guys.
You're
listen,
not even
listen,
living in
listen.
reality. That guy's a
What's
goofball. You should
what do you
mute him.
mean? What do you mean reality? Because you got your F-35s and you're dropping them on civilians. You think you're invincible? You haven't faced a real army yet. You're only facing a resistant group. You haven't faced the army. Okay.
Hey, take
Ever.
that.
Now listen.
Well, I won't say
Now
anything.
listen. Weapons are getting more advanced. We're not in 1948, 1967. Armies now, after these 14 months, I guarantee you, all these Muslim nations,
Right, excuse
they're
me.
arming themselves to the teeth right now. They're not
Good
gonna sit
luck.
beside a nation, a genocidal nation. You guys are going on TikTok burning the Quran.
All right, too fast. Too
What
fast.
you
Real quick.
talking
Hold on
about?
one sec. So I want to make sure I summarize his argument. So too fast.
Think
Let me finish. In response to David said that the territory doesn't really have any formal name or designation. His argument is that the people who came to the territory in the 1900 to 1947 period are basically those who want to control others, exert their will over them. And he used the word peasant incorrectly, but I think he meant to say
Yeah. No, I misheard the word peasant.
that's okay.
My.
That's okay. That's okay. So
You
what I
don't know
want
what
to
it
say is,
means.
in terms of moving forward, he made the claim that he thinks that because of the nature of the enemies that surround Israel and the fact that they're doing the things that they're doing, there's a likelihood that the state will somehow crumble. I want someone to address that issue. Here's my question. I want to ask Montana this. Are there any circumstances over time, perhaps maybe if the American empire changes and they can no longer provide the support, or maybe there's a conflict where Iran gets involved and Russia and China, are there any scenarios in which you think the Israeli state would change politically or even become a different
They're
entity?
gonna have no choice, Chip. They're gonna have no choice.
Let- Let's let, let's,
I'm
let's,
sorry.
If I may,
Give me
May
to
I
say
chime in
something
on
also.
this?
guys, let's let
No,
Montana.
let him
We'll go to
finish.
Montana.
Chip, I want to say something.
We'll go to Montana
Chip,
first, then to Palestine.
I was in all Israel. I
I
was in
have
all
to,
Israel.
David, I have to let other people speak, so it's fair. So I'll get you in the conversation, I promise. Let's go to Montana, then we'll go to Palestinian Jew. Well, that is
Yeah. Of course, there is a possibility. It's possible for anything to happen, right? Everything's possible.
okay.
Is the way I look at things.
Okay.
Pigs could fly. I mean, those drones could be aliens for all we know,
Right.
and they might fly over and grab everyone by the back of their pants and drop them in the middle of the ocean. I don't know. Things are possible, but I try to live in reality.
Okay.
And the reality is that the U.S. is going to stand behind Israel. It will, for the immediate future, for the next
Immediate.
30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, things are not going to change.
How do you know that?
Because he's reasonable.
And I think Too Fast is living he does not live in reality. He might
Okay.
think that aliens might fly down and grab everybody by the back of their pants and drop them in Antarctica.
What's reality? What's reality?
Okay, man.
But
The
Israel's
reality
the-
is that there's a state of Israel today,
Yeah.
and I have no skin in the game one way or the other than I'd prefer that it be a state of Israel because I actually like it there. But
I don't condone October 7th. Did you see what 1,200 people that went into your borders? Did you see what they were able to do?
Why are you changing the
whose
topic?
borders?
He's telling you
And
that.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about looking forward. And so
Now,
I
imagine
think
the
there
whole
should
Middle
be,
East coming after you.
I
You'll be
think
done
that's
for.
the
didn't
attitude
come after
that
us. Too
Too
Fast.
Fast
You know,
has is the exact antithesis
And you know
of
what's
how
the
people
perfect
should think.
example? I just want to make one perfect
This
example.
is the
You
exact
guys are scared
antithesis
to
of how
go.
people should think
You know how weak you are? You can't
to
even go
get
fight
solutions.
Iran on your own. That right there alone shows who you really are. You can't fight Iran on your own. You need U.S. support. We all know if you
What
can
are you
take on.
talking about?
We all know.
You put
You are a
down
listen,
propaganda
listen.
Muslim.
We all know. We
I'm
all
not.
know.
I'm a U.S. citizen, goofball. I've
Yeah,
been
so
to
am I.
Israel once.
Okay, I don't give a shit, dumbass. I don't care if you're a
You-
U.S. I'm a U.S. citizen, and listen. You pledge your allegiance probably to Israel more than you do to the U.S. Okay? So
No,
I
that
could
is
care less.
incorrect,
Yeah.
goofball.
Okay,
Big
goofball. Listen.
person.
Hey,
You should
Too
mute
Fast.
that
Let
Too
me
Fast
too,
guy, Chip.
too hot
Go
under the
ahead.
collar. Let me say something. Look, I don't think personally. I don't think that Israel will lose militarily in the foreseeable future as long as the U.S. backs it up. That is remain to be seen if the U.S. will back up Israel forever and ever. I doubt that. Maybe Trump, the next the Republicans are not going to be in power.
What do you mean by
2020,
back it up, Palestinian Jew? What do you mean by
by
sending
by
U.S.
by
troops on the
bank
ground,
bankrolling
or
by
just supporting
bankrolling
them?
by bankrolling the genocide. I'm not supporting Israel. If you listen to
Jeep.
me, you know that.
What
No, I
genocide?
understand.
I'm
I
talking
understand.
He
But you
talks so
said
much.
I understand.
okay, hold on, too fast, too fast. Don't get too hot under the collar too fast. You can be too fast, but not too hot. Just hear me out for a minute. So, as long as America backs up Israel militarily and
How?
financially with billions, then I doubt that the Arab nations around it will prevail in a conventional war. However, I think that Israel is going to implode from within as soon as a ceasefire, as soon as a hostility
Yeah, that's
stop.
true.
As
That's
you remember,
exactly what I was
hold
gonna
on,
say.
let me finish my point. If you remember, before October 7th, on October 6th, Israel was on the verge of a civil war that threatened the existence of the state. I mean, it was a civil war between the religious and the secular, between the left and the right. It was horrible. People started
See,
getting
there's a
unalived on the
reasonable
street.
argument.
Hold on, let me finish. So what happened? So October 7th happened. I argue by design from Netanyahu. Netanyahu caused it to happen. He wanted it to happen so he can bring the country together to fight a common enemy, which is a Palestinian. That was all by design to save his own ass, his own skin, at the expense of 1,200 people, most of whom he and his IDF have unalived on October 7th. It wasn't the Hamas. It was Israel.
Oh my God.
That
Palestinian Jew, can I ask you a quick
That guy-
question?
Why does
They
he let that guy go
unalived their
Reaper?
own
Chip,
people.
Chip.
Can I ask
They
you a
It's not funny.
question?
unalived
It's
their
not funny.
own.
Chip,
It's a
I
fact.
just want to ask you
It's
something.
It's not funny that you let somebody
Yo,
ask you.
Palestinian GA,
fact.
can I have some what are you smoking?
No,
I'm,
hold
I'm,
on. So,
what I'm saying, you cannot afford what I'm smoking.
Yeah, I can.
by
Trust
the way,
me.
I'm
I'm
smoking
gonna ask
some
you,
pretty
can I
good
ask you,
shit, man.
Palestinian
I'm
Jew,
smoking some pretty
are
good
the
shit.
Israeli soldiers, are they like thinking twice about joining the ITF? Is there a lot of them that are like F this
Yeah.
shit?
No.
If I join the
I have very few
בוגד.
refuseniks. There are very few refuseniks because
There's
they're all
more and more
brainwashed.
אתה
every day,
זבל
though.
בוגד, זה מה שעושים.
Brainwashed, and they go with they go along with the
Wait,
So why do
program.
they have a lot of? You know what I realized? Why do they
Palestinian
have a
Jew.
lot of Ethiopian
יא חתיכת כלא
Go
soldiers
ahead.
in their army?
He's not
Why
well
is
in
there
the
that?
head. He's not well. That's okay.
He's definitely unwell. He just
I'm
said
not
that
well. I'm
the
getting
age
all this.
group.
Thank you for all those roses I'm
Yeah, but
getting.
you just said that
You
age
guys
group
just don't
didn't
like him because
trade.
he's Jewish. That's why.
Wait, hold
That's
on
why
one
he's
second.
not enrolled.
What?
If he
It has
wasn't
nothing to
Jewish,
do with being a
then
Jew. He just said that H group didn't come in and unalive anybody. It was just the IDF.
He just
Not what
said,
he
I
said.
did not say only the IDF. I
Not what
said
You
he
need.
said.
most of them were unalived by the IDF. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah. So what I'm
They
saying is,
admitted
what I'm,
all of
what I'm
it.
saying is, sir, what
There
I'm
are a
saying is,
couple
sir,
of generals that admitted it.
oh, let
you,
Palestinian Jew talk. I know he's triggering you all. Just calm
I'm
down.
not
Let him
triggered,
speak.
bro. He just need. I think that he needs to seek therapy as soon as
No,
possible.
you just can't handle the
What?
truth. You need
No, this is.
therapy to
Oh, so
realize. You
you
need
think the
therapy over.
IDF
I cannot
unalived
handle the
most of their
truth.
own?
So the truth is that Hamas came
Where did
and,
you get that number
and
from?
they beheaded 40 babies and they put them in ovens. That's the truth, right? That's the truth
No,
that the
no,
Zionists
no,
told the
no.
world.
Did I say that? No. Did I
You
say
did not
that?
say that, but you people said that. Our
No,
people
I've never
said
said that in my life. I've
that.
never said that
Yes,
in
they
my life.
analyzed
But
it.
what
They
Caesar
beheaded
said,
babies, they put them in ovens, they
Stop.
They
raped,
cut
they
the baby out of the woman's
raped. That
stomach.
was the truth.
Whole bunch of
they
things.
did.
Stop.
That
They
was
We
did.
the
talk
They,
about.
they did.
is
I
that
cannot
the
say nothing.
truth,
As
my
he
friend?
talk too much.
That was a talking point for months and months and months after October 7th. All of it has been debunked.
Hey,
Nothing of that
Chip, can I
happened.
talk about pigs
The
flying
reality is
and
it's going to come.
all
But the
kinds of other
truth is
stuff?
Look,
going to
Come,
come
I
we
out.
really
talk
want to
The
talk
forward
truth
about.
about the
I really
future.
want to
going
talk
to
about
come
how
out.
Israel really
The
thinks it can
future is
survive in the
Israel
Middle East.
now
You guys
is
have
a
no
strong
future.
power in this area.
Everybody, let me repeat what I said earlier. So when people talk over each other, no one can hear what anybody's saying, and we have to have some order of this. So please respect that.
So
People don't.
maybe everybody
Just,
talk a
just,
minute or
David,
2 minutes.
I'm going to do that just a second. So there's some people that haven't spoken in a while. We have a new guest, so I want to give them a chance to get in. Again, we're talking about, for the audience, we're talking about the permanency of Israel as a state. We're talking about potential things that could cause things to change, and the validity of what happened when people came from Europe to Palestine and made changes in the region, and who did what to whom, and what the validity was with that. That's kind of the backdrop of the conversation. I want to give Dingbat to get in because she's been waiting patiently, and then I want to go to our new guest, Alaze, and then we'll go
Yep.
on. So go ahead, Dingbat.
Oh,
Just 1 second. You're going to go next after Dingbat.
okay.
Oh,
Thank you.
but one more thing. We have two guests that have been patiently waiting in the queue to come up. So if there's anybody that wants to cycle down and come back up, or I'll have to do it involuntarily. So if anyone wants to volunteer, there we go. Someone just dropped. Okay, go ahead, Dingbat, and then Alaze.
I was going to say that I don't think with the US support and the global power support of Israel that Israel's going anywhere. Anyone who thinks that is just not living in reality. You all are absolutely correct. What I do think though is that Israel internally is going to face an extreme crisis, and that is what will most likely be not the end of Israel, but a restructuring of what the state is, because internally there are issues that need to be resolved, big existential issues that don't result from any of the enemies surrounding us, but within ourselves. I mean, you have a government who sat by and allowed 1,200 people to be brutally unalived on October 7th while they knew it was going to happen, had intelligence that it was going to happen, all to save the political career of one awful, corrupt person. How many people do you think are going to continue to be willing to go serve and fight and
Why you think like
potentially?
this? Why you are
Yeah,
lying?
Shnia.
Stop
שנייה, את לא
talking.
מתביישת לפתח על ישראל
Chaga,
ככה?
Chaga. Let her talk.
How many more people do you think are going to be willing to put their lives on the line and go and fight and lose their lives
Don't
for a
worry.
state that won't even save them if they were to be captured? Like, this has
It doesn't
been a
matter. The US will
monumental
come.
failure.
Ding, are you Israeli or what are you? Like,
I am Israeli. I'm Jewish. Yeah, I'm a Jewish Israeli.
See, there's some Israelis that have some common sense. You see that?
Bugedet ma.
You literally just
Ma
People like
you
Ding,
literally
people like
showed that
Ding,
you
the
don't have common
Palestinian
sense.
Jew, there are some
You didn't know what a
hope.
peasant was. You thought Israel would fall militarily. You don't have common sense.
Bro, listen. I understand this is very emotional, but I'm gonna disagree on one thing. Nations get stronger and people get militarily more powerful, right? I do not see a future militarily that Israel's going to survive in the Middle East. I don't see it.
And
You guys know Egypt is a strong
only thing you
Your
served
dream
was
is that Israel don't
hash
survive
browns.
here. Your dream is forget from this. Forget.
After what you've done,
where America was not our, you know that America, learn history, America was not our allies until the 60s. Who was our allies? The French government and the French people was allies. Israel survived until the 60s without America. You know how much benefit America take from Israel also? You know? I dig on all Israel. I dig in all Israel. I didn't find one evidence about fucking Palestinian. One
Calm
evidence.
down, breathe, bro,
You
breathe.
you are not Palestinian. You don't have
I'm
Palestinian
Palestinian.
people. You are
There it
liar.
is.
You are a
You're talking to
Muslim
a Palestinian
Shia. You
right
are a
now.
Muslim Sunnah. You are
You're
Adil the
talking.
Khalif. And yo, I
Okay, guys, enough of this nonsense. No,
a
no,
bad future to
David, I got to take you down, my brother, because I can't have people making attacks on people that way. Okay, you can disagree with somebody's point of view and speak to that. Just a second, everyone. You can disagree with people's point of view and say their argument is nonsense. That's fine. But when you start attacking the person, and listen, I don't agree with too fast assessment of where Israel's going in the near future. I think it's going to take time if anything does happen. But he has the right to say that, as does other people. So there's two people right now that haven't talked in a while. Aliza is the new person, and we'll go back to Z Justice for a chance to speak. And we have a new guest, Quartzite, and I'm bringing up Liberty Mind. Please go ahead, Aliza.
Thank you for giving me some time. First of all, I think the whole problem in the Middle East is not religious. So this, thinking about the state of Israel or calling it, it is a state with a political ideology, and I think whether the neighboring states, I don't think they have a problem with religion per se, but with the political ideology that the state has today. And that political ideology is moving from more right as we speak. So I actually think Ding's point was spot on, that I think internally the state will have to reshape itself, reshape its ideology. And the way it's moving, it's not moving in that trajectory. It's moving in a trajectory that will not allow the people that are living today to enjoy what the forefathers wanted the state to look like. And I think that will create more issues. And I think...
Whoops, I think someone's using the restroom. I just muted you, Martin.
So it's interesting. International support, of course, they're going to continue to get international support. Will the U.S. change? Probably so. I think, the left, especially the Democrats, will not be as friendly going forward, but that will take a lot of time for it to materialize. I think this war has been a very ugly page, and I think a lot of people, it has opened up. Pardon?
The G side, not the war.
I don't think it matters what we call it. I think it's for the world to, you have the ICJ, you have you have multiple courts looking at it. And I think a lot of people, whether you call it the G word or the whatever word you want to call it, it's goddamn bloody, and it has torn people from the inside.
If you consider this a war, this war has ended a long time ago. Israel militarily won it, and they have no reason to keep on dropping booms right now at this moment. As we're speaking,
haven't eradicated Hamas yet.
They unalived all the leaders. Okay,
eradicate
they
Hamas.
Decimated all of Gaza. They still have their jets and their military might over on top of Gaza. They got Gaza surrounded with tanks. How is this a war? It's over. The war has been over. You got a few H group members here and there.
Montana, by their own admittance, you cannot eradicate Hamas. By their own army general came out on TV and said exactly. Well, that's
but
what
not
it
the
is.
group.
So no. Listen, Hamas ideology is in the heart of every Palestinian. The resistance is in the heart of every Palestinian. But I'll wait my turn.
Chip, I'm gonna go. Can I just get one last word before I go?
Let me, before you do, let me let Quartzite say hi, and then I'll pass the mic to you. Go ahead, Quartzite. If you're there, Quartzite.
Good morning, Chip. It's been a long time. I'm happy to see you here. Still, you pushing the narrative aside and speaking for the Palestinian Middle Eastern. Thank you for showing the true face to the world. Yes, it's a genocide. Yes, everything is all wrong by these people. Everything what they say is wrong. Everything they do is wrong. And then plus they come here and they try to be aggressive and try to push the narrative. It's not going to work that way. The world is standing with the Palestinians, and the world is seeing what atrocity and genocide is taking place. Why the hell did yesterday the settlers they did wrong with the 2 years old? They basically grabbed the 2 years old. So you think this is justice in the world? This is not the kind of people we want to be surrounded with. Why would the Arab live with the people when a settler, they're grabbing a 2 years old toddler? Do you think these are humans? These people are living with all this sickness. They're psychopaths. They're living with the post-trauma, and they don't have any respect for humanity. So we in the Middle East, we need peace. Israel is at its last leg at this moment. Israel has no choice to live in the Middle East except it has a backup from the US. So we are here to see that what's going wrong. We as a human being, as American, we need to stop funding this bullshit fake state. This is the only country in the world. It has no boundary. It does not have a sovereign state, and it does not have a humanity. They do not respect ICC. They do not respect UN. We are here in a big fuss. These people just keep grabbing more land, more land, more land. We as a human being, we see the right and the wrong. So we want to stand with the Palestinian people as long as we can. Please raise your voice. I belong to Kashmir. We want to see Kashmir free. We want to see Palestine free.
What about the Uyghurs?
When
You know something?
Wait,
No,
wait,
hold on,
October
Chip.
guys, hold on. One sec. I promised J1 at the top he could go before he leaves, and then we want to go to Liberty because he's been waiting. So
the day we're gonna win and we liberate Palestine is the day we're gonna free the world. The world is in a chaos. We need peace. This is enough of bullshit. We don't want to stand with all this fake propaganda, fake agenda. Everything is wrong from the beginning to the end. They do not have a roadmap. They do not have a boundary. They do not have a sovereign state. They do not even have future for their own people. They're going to have a civil war inside the Israel, and that bullshit state needs to go away. We need peace in Middle East. Even if these countries can get combined together, we need to have United States of Middle East. We want peace. Enough is enough.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you for that. Please stand by. J1, once you finish up, so we can pass the mic to Liberty, please.
Yeah, I'll drop and you can bring somebody else up after this. I was just going to say, Chip, I don't know if you've ever had actual long dialogue with me. I obviously promote peace and I want this conflict to end as soon as possible. So I agree with that last thing that Courtside says. We need peace in the Middle East. They're all across the globe, okay?
So
The
get the
trouble that I
Zionists
have...
out of get
One
the
second.
Zionists out of
Oh my
Israel.
God.
Stop, drop, and boom.
How is this possible? Thank you. Okay. The problem that I have is you have half the side on your panel saying, oh, okay, it's a G side and all these things and blah, blah, blah. And then the other half is like, no, we're going to militarily destroy Israel and they're going to be off the map very soon. It can't be both. It's not possible to be both. If you think that Israel's had an existential threat of existence, then they are defending themselves. You're proving our point too fast when you say these things like this. I want to bring everyone back to reality for a second. Some people think Israel will internally collapse. Too fast thinks Israel will fall militarily means none of that is happening in the near future. Montana made a great point. We are where we are today. If you want to get to peace, it's time that the Palestinians put pen to the paper rather than bombs on their chest and blow themselves up. And that's the reality.
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, so
Maybe it's the other
how
way
do you
around.
want peace?
Hold on,
How
too
do
fast.
you
One
want
sec.
peace if you're building settlement?
One sec. This is a question.
I'm gonna go. Montana's got this for us.
One sec, guys. One sec.
Yeah.
This is a question I wanted to ask J1 and then hand the mic to Liberty to either address this or whatever he wants to speak about.
Okay.
So it appears to many outsiders that Israel, because of the U.S. government's support and the history of all this being the dominant power, it can act with relative impunity. I think no one would argue that what it just did in Syria in terms of increasing the buffer zone, and it still has troops further into Syria, about 10 kilometers from Damascus, and all the bombing campaigns it did to destroy the military assets of the country, in addition to what it's done in Gaza, which is obviously a huge point of contention. Do you think its over excessive use of force may lead to retribution eventually if the power dynamics change in ways that would be unthinkably bad for Israel?
Okay, that's a good question. I'll say, first of all, I don't think Israel can act with impunity. I can tell you things I condemn and leaders I condemn. For example, I'll say in the first 3 weeks of this conflict, Israel kind of acted a little bit aggressive and disproportionately boomed specifically infrastructure so that they can easily maneuver their way in Gaza. After those first 3-4 weeks, where the estimated casualty or unaliving was like 500 or 600 a day, which is absolutely disgusting, they scaled back the war a great ton. There's a reason why this number has been like, and listen, one is too many, but there's a reason why this number has been stuck at 40,000 for 6 months.
No, it's because there's no journalist.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it.
sure. You
There's
could say
no
whatever you want to
journalist.
say.
Nobody could
No,
come
no.
in. That's it.
No, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to Chip, brother. Okay? Focus on
Not
your
your
ego.
brother, bro.
There's a lot of
Not your brother.
internal problems with your team right now. Okay? Focus on your
Not your
egos.
brother.
Yeah. So Chip, yes, they've done wrong, and they're not work. They don't act with impunity. But
Wait,
if you're gonna,
are you making the argument that the Israeli military and government do not act with impunity?
no, they have like, what do you mean? They have the right to act within international law. They cannot act with impunity. That's what
Wait,
I'm
but
on
do
your
you
side.
know what
That's a
impunity means?
joke.
Wait, what's wrong with saying that they have?
No, I'm saying I don't think you understand what impunity means. We're saying that
Exactly.
Israel
They
has
want to
not.
talk about my friend not knowing what peasant means. I don't think you understand what impunity
Okay,
means.
so what are you asking specifically?
That there have been no consequences to Israel's violation of multiple international laws, like for the last year and a half.
I said they can't act with
There
impunity. How
are
do I?
They are,
900
they
since
are.
1948. There are 900 plus.
Wait, Chip, you heard me say that they can't act. They
UN
can't act with
resolutions
impunity.
against the
What-
colony of Israel. 900 plus UN resolutions that Israel has not abided by since the creation of the colony. It's been over 900 resolutions.
I'll tell you why I
that
don't
the
care.
colony
Let me tell
has
you why I
not
don't.
abided
Let me
by.
tell you why I
You
don't.
go.
Listen, hold on 1 second. I understand what impunity is. I just said Israel cannot act without impunity. Okay. What I was saying is why I don't respect the UN, for example.
Wait,
Why I don't.
whoa, stop. Explain, justify what you just said first before you go about the UN as far as its bias or whatever.
They cannot act without. They have to act within the laws of international law, just like any country has. They're not impune. They're not.
But the point that's being raised, though, the reason people use the word impunity is because Israel has basically flaunted or ignored or decided that international law does not apply to them because they have the support of the U.S. at the Security Council. The U.S. has used its veto 74 times, 53 of which has been to prevent Israel from being held accountable for its violations of international law. That's why it's able
So this
to.
gentleman just brought Chip. This gentleman just brought the UN to me. The reason why I say I don't care for the UN is because the UN just sacked their Secretary Advisor of Prevention of G-Side for saying it's not a G-Side. So when you hire someone,
It's a G-side.
They didn't renew someone's contract, and we don't know the specific reasons. Although
okay, Chip, come on, Chip, are you serious?
Maybe I can clear something up. If the UN take a position against Israel, they're all anti-Semite. Anybody who takes a position against Zionism is an anti-Semite.
Let me clear it up one more time, okay? And then you could. I want to hear your response. Wait, hold on. Let me clear this up one time. Listen, I really have to go.
Is that the bottom line here?
I have to go to a meeting. Let me just say one last thing. The reason why I don't respect the UN. Wait. The reason why I don't respect the UN, not only because of the Secretary Advisor of the Prevention of G-Side was sacked after saying it wasn't a G-Side, but also the fact that, like Liberty said, there's hundreds of more resolutions on Israel compared to the rest of the world. And if you think Israel is worse than the rest of the world, then I don't know where you're living or what you're seeing.
Can I just say something real quick?
We don't think it's worse than the rest of the world. We think it's the worst in the world.
Yeah, you say it's not a G-side.
Yeah, you do.
Shows your ignorance.
I don't know if you guys remember in the beginning
That shows your
of this
ignorance.
conflict.
I'm Iranian, and I can tell you
G-side.
IRGC is 10 times
Listen,
worse
listen.
than Israel will ever be.
Chip,
I'm
Chip,
Iranian,
in the
and I'm telling you
Why
that
don't?
right
Why?
now.
Yeah. Why are you?
beginning of
Why
the
aren't you
conflict-
guys arguing that the Persians get to keep Iran?
Because they're the naturally occurring people of the land. Obviously, as an
Persians?
American,
But
obviously
they're
as an
the
American
Persians don't run
colonizer,
Iran,
you
dude.
might not understand that. The people of
Right,
Iran
right.
are the naturally occurring people of the land. The people of China
No, they're
are the
people
the
that run it
Chinese
are not.
people are the
You don't
naturally
know what you're
occurring
talking about.
people of China. The
So this
Africans
guy-
are the naturally occurring people of Africa. The
Okay, I'm gonna go to-
Palestinians
You're a
I'm
moron.
are the
gonna-
People have
naturally occurring
migrated
people
all over the
of,
planet.
of Palestine.
I'm not gonna let this
You
goofball
are, you are, sir, with all this respect, just a CNN, Fox News retard that thinks you can come here and just tell
Hey,
us how we
Chip.
how we can defend ourselves.
Can you name me one
He
conflict
started
where,
it, Chip.
I know. Well, let's do this, guys.
Chip, can I make an argument to why Israel conducts a just?
Just one. I got to make the rules clear again because everybody. I don't want to start dropping people, but please stick to the argument and say that the argument you're putting forth is ridiculous or something like that. People probably can be smart, but still make arguments that we disagree with. I don't know Montana's background or anything like that, so I don't know where his views come from. Let me just say this, in fairness. There are committees right now at these different international bodies working on adjudicating what's going on in Gaza and elsewhere that the Israeli government has been accused of certain crimes. We know for sure that the International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants both for Hamas leaders, fair enough, they committed war crimes, as well as the Israeli leadership, Golant and Netanyahu. Israel completely ignores those calls for arrest warrants, while the United States backs up the delegitimization of these international institutions when it's their ally. When it's their adversary, like Russia, they commend the court for doing their job properly. This is the inconsistency and hypocrisy of the West and Israel vis-a-vis the institutions they ignore, which means they're flaunting international law. J1, who left? Liberty, why don't you go ahead and finish, then we'll go to Z Justice.
Yeah, if I can just get a couple of minutes uninterrupted. You
Go
know,
ahead.
Asher Ginsburg, known by his pen name Ahad Ha'am, Asher Ginsburg. He is one of the foremost leaders and founders and most revered theologians of the late 19th, early 20th century Jewish theologians. He wrote about the Zionism, and his vision of Zionism was way different than what we see today. He called on the people that are settling Palestine, the Russian Jews that are going there in the late 1880s, to treat the people with humanity that are there. He called on them to treat them well and work with them and benefit from them and let them benefit from you. And he warned against rising the wrath of the natives, or causing the wrath of the natives to rise against them. A few years later, in the 1890s, he visited Palestine, and then he was disgusted by what he's seen. And what he said, and I remember it, I'm not in my office, I don't have his writings in front of me, but I read it so many times. And he said, and I quote, "Yet what do our brethren do in Palestine?" Serfs, they were in the land of the diaspora. Serfs meaning peasants, right? And in Palestine, they find this new freedom to act and behave, I'm summarizing now, as they please. So they treat the natives with disgust. They deprive them of their humanity. They speak ill of them. They treat them in inhumane ways. And then he goes on to say, if this be the coming of the Messiah, I do not want to see it. I do not want to see it coming. This is just a summary of one person, one good Jewish person in the beginnings of this diabolical project that warned against it. Another one is Samuel Montague. He was the British Prime Minister. He was the British Prime Minister of India.
Can you land the plane as soon as quicker as you can?
Yeah. Sorry about that. I'll go on. There were many warnings. It's the Holocaust that changed the minds of the Jewish people and the rest of the world, and fooled them into thinking that somehow some people, a Russian Jew has a right to come to Palestine and establish a state, where we all know a Christian Russian is just that, a Russian. A Muslim Russian is just that, a Russian. A Chinese Muslim is just that, Chinese. A Chinese Christian is just that, Chinese. I don't know why it's so different for the Jews. This ideology of Zionism that wants to change the norms and what's common sense in the world is just becoming a fail. Ever since that establishment, ever since the first settlers, they've worked for over 100 years to paint the image that Montana understands of this colony as of October 6th, 2023. On October 7th, that blessed day, our freedom warriors had something else to say, and they shattered that image. They shattered that propaganda, all within a few hours, and the whole world now sees it for what it is. It's Nazism 2.0, and that's what it's been all along, and now the world sees it. And because of that, it's a matter of time before this cookie crumbles. Listen, no entity ever in history committed genocide and went ahead to survive. I'll
you
just go
shut
ahead
up?
and
You already.
I'll
Oh
just
my
go
God.
ahead and point you towards Bashar al-Assad. His fate, I promise you, Israel's fate is going to be worse than his.
God Almighty, you guys are so fucking annoying. So Muslim countries have actually genocided Jews in what, like countless countries. You don't say anything about that, and then you blame these
As a
dispersed
Palestinian,
Jewish
honestly, that's not my
people.
fucking problem. As a
Okay,
Palestinian,
Okay,
that's
fucking
not
let
my
me
racist.
problem,
finish.
Stop
man.
interrupting me.
Which Arab
Okay,
country
racist.
genocided the Jews?
Stop interrupting me, asshole. So all these dispersed Jewish people go back to their indigenous.
Just real quick, no name calling or personal attacks, please. Thank you.
He stated
But
something I wanted
all
to
what the
know.
Jewish people suffered throughout
Let's
history,
let
that's not my problem as a Palestinian.
let's let Kyle
Can you
You're
finish.
mute
doing the
that
same
guy?
thing to me. You're doing the same
So
thing to
let's
me. You
see.
see
See,
here? You
Jewish
see the
people who have been
difference?
dispersed legally purchased land, and
Legally purchased
they
land.
legally purchased land in an area that did have some Arabs, but has also had plenty of room for both
Oh, they did not
populations.
legally
The
purchase any
Arabs
land.
think
That
that,
is a
you know
bunch
what,
of
we're going to
bullshit.
come in and
That
kill all
is
you
not
guys.
true. That is
That
not true. They
is
did not
true.
purchase
That is true.
legally any
That is
land. No, they
true.
did not.
That is
They
true.
did
I'm
not.
sorry you're racist,
They
but
were granted Miri lands by the
Sorry, guys. I don't want people interrupting and talking over each other. Kyle just came in. We want to give him a chance to speak, but let me share one point. I've researched this very thoroughly. So, of the territory of historic Palestine, not the Transjordan on the east side of the river, we're talking about 5.7% of the territory was indeed transacted between Arab owners to Jewish owners. That's not
HF.
that's not all the land that was transacted.
HF, respectfully, I even dispute that, and I wish I was on my office, and I'll point you to direct you to the sources. How under the
Why you
British
don't give to the
mandate,
Jews to talk?
excuse me,
Muslim,
how
you
under
are
the
talking.
British
You're not
mandate,
Palestinian. You are Muslim.
about 95% of that 5.7% that you speak about was transferred to these owners in unkosher ways, for the lack of better terms. I can refer you to the documentation, and it's like plenty, like volumes upon volumes. When I will make it a thing when I get to my office to DM you these sources, that it was actually less than 0.5% that was purchased, and then even that has some kind of clouds on it.
Okay, so let's just put it this way. So some amount of land may change hands, but most of the territory was partitioned by the UN partition plan and wasn't bought out. So let's move on. Kyle, would you like to finish your thought?
if you have such a problem, this Liberty guy's obviously really racist. I get it. He's just one of these typical Islamists who's
Not
a
one
freaking
racist thing
retard.
on here, buddy.
Yeah, you are.
He's
Yeah, you
racist
are.
and you
Keep
know
talking,
it.
dude. Keep talking, dude. You guys, a
I
lot of you
hate
guys are really
Zionists with a
racist.
passion, that's for
You mean
sure.
you mean you hate
Kyle,
Jewish people?
what point would you
We
like to make
understand.
rather than
It means
rather
I
than
hate
Really,
Zionists.
we understand.
I
rather
don't
than
agree
I
with I
mean,
hate Zionists.
if I may reply to that,
guys, listen, everybody, I'm going to make this one point one more time. I'm going to give each person a chance to speak. The next person that interrupts them, I'm going to have to drop you because otherwise I can't maintain the panel. Everybody keeps doing the same shit over and over. I'd like to hear what Kyle says. Kyle, I didn't hear anything from Liberty and Fairness that sounded racially motivated. He simply said that the land that you claim was purchased, and I brought up an issue of a percentage, and he says he has documentation that refutes that. Let's leave it at that. Please continue your point.
So, okay, first of all, the land was supposed to be Jordan and Israel. So, you freaking Arabs that think you own the entire fucking world because you're racist fucks and are fascist as hell, and you think.
Okay, listen, guys, everybody, okay? Somebody disparaging, quote, the Jews, and somebody disparaging, quote, the Arabs, and then using cuss words has no place on this panel, okay? If you want to do that, open your own live, and good luck with that getting banned. Okay, Kyle, if you want to come back to the panel and behave like an adult and not sling things like you were doing, because, by the way, you're the one who sounded racist in the conversation, not Liberty Mind, in my opinion, as a fair-minded host. Okay, Z Justice hasn't spoken in a while, so I want to give him a chance. Please stay muted, everybody. I know Montana, you keep coming off mute. Please don't do that, and then we'll go around the panel. Go ahead, Z.
All right, so I just want to make a statement regarding addressing the criticism that the Israel military gets on the operations in Gaza. Okay, I'm just going to address that. And if we have to utilize a stripped emotions and use the first prime logic, which is used by scientists, basically means you strip to the argument's core and you're taking a look at facts without emotions. So let's look at facts. The Israeli military currently conducts an operation in Gaza in response to October 7. While some people, their opinions, this was the resistance movement, based on amount of indiscriminate civilians that we used and the accusations by ICJ and ICC that there is a T attack, there is a unanimous decision that it was not a glorious event, that was a T attack. So now Israel responds based on the ICJ. So based on the ICJ, Israel responds back in Gaza. Now, if we want to have a prime logic response, we have to look at what was done in courts. For example, the courts will say this. If I want to make a judgment, I have to take a look at what would be comparable. What was done in the past that would be equally as comparable, so we can make cases. For example, case A against B, this is a similar case. That's why I make my judgment based upon that. So if you take a look at what the Israel is doing de facto in Gaza right now, compared to other military zones in the world ever, you will see this. The military ratio to combatants is 1-4. That's facts. Or at least something that is to be disputed
Not
about facts,
facts.
but it's extremely low. Extremely low. Second, Israel unalived 1.8% of the population. That is, compared to the other military zones, is extremely small. Israel utilizes knocking on the roofs, alarming civilians, trying to give them up the harm's way. So I have a question to that panel. Please show me, if we are in the court, any other military conflict that the other military exhibited the valor and the concern for the civilians as much as the IDF did. If you show me one war that the other military exhibited a concern for civilians as much as Israel did, de facto, we will concede that point. You will find zero.
No,
And in fact, I would claim this. I did not finish. And in fact, I would say this. War crimes will always happen in war. It's an indisputable fact amongst the war experts. Whenever you have war, you will have war crimes on both ends, period.
But you
Because
said,
war is a nasty business.
everything you said is with all respect, everything you said is according to the IDF. How come the IDF is vehemently
Show me
refuse?
one
Hold on. It's not
No,
facts
I
just
did not
because you say
finish.
it. It's not
Show
facts just
me
because you
one
say it's facts.
military that did
How
better than
come
us.
Israel
guys, you guys don't want to go.
rejects
Liberty,
And I will
one
concede.
second. Guys,
Show me one military in the world.
okay, right now, ready? I'll tell you. Okay, I typed in the chat GPT. This is what I typed in. List one conflict where the civilian to combatant death toll was less than the current conflict between Israel and Hamas. Here's what chat GPT says. Let me finish. One conflict where the civilian to combatant death toll was less than the current Israel-Hamas war was the Falkland Islands conflict between Argentina and the UK. There you go. Okay, there you said show you one. There's your one. Okay. Let's see who's back on the panel that you got a chance. So we have history.
Chip, let me address you because I
Oh,
won't
Kyle,
call you a
hold
Jew.
on, Kyle, you unceremoniously had to be let down, so don't demand to get back in. Let's get you back in when we can. History Maker came up. Would you like to jump into the conversation?
You think you're very racist, but that kind of goes without saying. But go ahead, please.
Okay, listen, let's go with what people have said, not what you presume based on what you think some other characteristics. Liberty didn't say anything racially oriented towards Jewish people or any other group, nor have I. So I don't know where Kyle's drawing this from. Kyle, if you want to be in the conversation, if you want to stick to the issues and the arguments, I'd love to have you up and hear your views. If you want to play this game of accusing people of stuff where there's no evidence, take that elsewhere, my friend. Okay, go ahead, History.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
I speak as a person outside of USA, and I want to notice that USA citizens are very, very, very interested and affected about Israel. And why is that? It is because of the education, and this because of theology. Before Jewish Zionism, we had Christian Zionism, which started around 1830. And in the beginning of 20th centuries, we have Theodor Herzl, who started Zionism as a political movement. But on this ideology, the Christians, evangelical Christian in USA, sponsored and developed this dogma about Israel and end times and second coming of Jesus and the second temple and end of the world in Israel. That's why USA citizens are so affected about Israel. If you look at Pew Research Institute, you'll see that around 40% of USA citizens believe that the end of the world will come in their time, and the second coming of Jesus will be during their life. This is unbelievable how a dogma or a theology can influence a whole country. In this way, we can say that some of the people are fanatics and are extremists. And I'm so disappointed to see evangelicals rejoicing in seeing the death of women and children. I cannot believe I live such times. I have greater expectation from USA evangelicals, and I'm so disappointed to see that they are covering the Zionist doctrine.
Yeah, I think a lot of people share that, and it's surprising that people that say they believe in Christ, which is, I believe, a peaceful person, that they're supporting a situation where people are losing their lives at such a rate at the hands of one versus the other. You know, I remember during the Iraq War, I'm not a church-going person, but a friend asked me to come to a non-denominational church one Sunday when the Iraq War was going on, when the U.S. was unleashing amazing amounts of stuff on Baghdad. And he asked the question to the audience, which really upset the audience because it was a very sort of conservative Christian audience. He said, "Who would Jesus bomb?" So to those conservative Christians out there that support Zionists because of this objective of the second coming and the battle and Armageddon, I'd ask you, who would Jesus bomb? Who would Jesus be happy about? What would Jesus say if he came down today and looked at what's happening? What would he say? Good question to ask.
It's unbelievable, to be honest.
Yeah, good point. Okay, we have a new speaker named Half Pint who's here, and we'll go to Federico after that. Go ahead, Half Pint.
Hey Chip, how are you?
Good, thanks. How about you?
I'm doing well. To listen on panels and just be in the comments and listen to some of the things that people are spewing, it's very clear that if you're a citizen of the United States and you don't realize at this point that your government has literally manufactured consent for decades for the things that has done globally, you really aren't paying attention to what's going on. And you need to open your eyes because we are being used as citizens of this country to do things globally that is disgusting, absolutely disgusting. And this latest, tryst with supporting Israel and committing genocide, which I 100% believe that it is genocide. And we still have citizens who are supporting this. I don't know what's wrong with them mentally. That they really need to get some help because the truth is there for them to see it. It's pretty blatant. And if you're on TikTok and you still don't want to face it, this is probably one of the apps that's going to show you the truth more than anything else. So open your eyes and stop believing in what you have been told for decades. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And we are going to pay the price. Eventually, we are going to pay the price. Something is going to give in the United States. And we're going to be in a bad way. And if people don't wake up and stand up and understand that we're being used.
I'm curious to hear, I agree with every word you said. When in your journey did you kind of break free from your previous programming and learn some of these differences that you're referring to?
Well, I'm indigenous to the United States, to Turtle Island. So I've never really been programmed, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a good.
At this point, I've seen it from my childhood and how my people and my ancestors were treated.
Yeah.
And so I've never really fell for the programming. I've watched it. I've watched it happen, from the government schools that my grandmother was in.
Yeah.
I've watched it. But I can't believe that there are so many people who just refuse to really face what's going on. And if you think that you are benefiting from it, that's the reason why you don't stand up and say something. You're not. You're not benefiting from it.
Yeah, good points. Thank you for saying that. Let's go to Federico to see what he has on his mind.
Chip, this is exactly, I agree with the sister who already spoke. I do agree because the suffering is the Palestinians who are suffering. First thing, they're not.
Real quick. I don't know if you heard. I was going to try to go to Federico. Is it okay if we let him go because he hasn't spoken yet?
I think he's not responding.
Yeah, just one sec. Federico, if you're not there, we have another guest that hasn't spoken yet either, Habib Eldab. So, Habib, would you like to jump in, or do you want to wait and let Courtside go?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, so first off, I'll start off with our country. So I'm American, born in America. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Well, born in Cleveland, from Kent, Ohio.
Okay.
My father was from Egypt. My mom is white. My father passed away. I've been watching this whole situation for years, for lots of years. We have family all over the world, everywhere, a lot of countries. And so our country, America, we're falling apart. I travel a lot. I travel the world. I haven't been to every country. I've been to a lot of countries, and we're falling apart because all this money is going to Israel to create all these wars, all these problems that are going on, and they're playing the victim. I didn't realize that we funded Israel so much until I saw what happened October 7th of last year, and I know that's not when it all started, but I didn't realize how much was really going on until one of my trips to Egypt a couple of years ago, where there was a bunch of Palestinians on my flight on the way to Jordan, and I'm like, am I going to Palestine or am I going to Jordan? What am I, and I started talking with a lot of Palestinians about the whole situation, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, well, we've got camps over here now. We got kicked off our land." I'm like, "Wow, this is still going on today." And so yeah, we in the West, America, a lot of people are very blind to see what is really going on overseas. They don't know. I remember my first time flying overseas by myself in 2018 after my father passed away, going to Egypt to go visit a bunch of cousins, and it was a big shocker in culture to see going over to Egypt compared to how we live here in America. I've been to Dubai, I've been to Hong Kong, I've been to Abu Dhabi, I've been to a lot of countries, and I'm seeing their infrastructure. I do construction. I drive down all these roads in America. Our infrastructure is crumbling in this country, and we have billions going to a country called Israel, where missiles are getting shot into civilian homes and we're killing women and children. I have a huge problem with that. I don't. Look at we're falling apart in this country, and all my family around the world. We've got everybody in our family. We've got Christians in our family. We've got Coptic Christians. We've got Orthodox. We've got evangelicals. We've got Muslims in our family. I'm not religious myself. I was forced into Catholicism as a child. We've got Catholics in our family. And everybody. I'm a person of equality, humanity. The reason I support Palestine and Gaza, the reason I support all this is because it's for humanity reasons. It's not about religion for me. Look at all these Orthodox Jews for crying. Look at them marching down New York and all the videos you see on TikTok, Instagram. I'm part of Jewish Voice for Peace. I'm a member of Jewish Voice for Peace. I'm a member of one of the Palestinian groups as well. I can't think off the top of my head which one it is. But this whole thing has got me worked up for so long now, since last year, October 7th, when I was in London with my family there in London, spending some time. My cousin comes down, has some coffee, and he says, what just happened? I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And it's killing me to see this as an American, as a half Egyptian. It's killing me to see what Israel's Netanyahu, this government, this Netanyahu, this I gotta watch my language here. This whole procedure, this situation, this regime, this Zio regime that is going on has got to stop. And if you listen to these Orthodox Jews, you can see them on camera with a big, X through the Israeli flag saying this is wrong. I would love, if I didn't have to work and get caught up on bills, I would have marched down those streets with all those Jews I saw and supporting Palestinians. I would have walked down those streets and marched with them and showed my support to the Jewish communities that are seeing the truth of what's really going on in this world right now. I am not a racist person, and I don't want to hear all your, your anti-Semitic or whatever. I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm anti-Zionist. Zionist movement is an H movement. Is the mustache guy movement. You know where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
So.
Can I ask you a question real quick? Sorry to jump in, but you said you've been involved in some protests. There was a Canadian woman on last night who was on the live, and she made the allegation that the Palestinian protests are violent and disruptive and problematic. Have you seen any violence or any hateful language on signs or anything like that as a part of the protests you've been to?
I haven't been any. No, maybe I misspoke or something. No, I have not been to any live in-person protests. I've seen them on TikTok. No, I've been working my butt off since I've been in a financial situation. Been working my butt off for the last 3 years now. Since I don't want to get into all the politics, but since Biden took office, work has not been good for me at all whatsoever. So I'm trying to catch up on bills. But no, I have not been in any live protests out in the streets. I've been on them on TikTok live. I've been on Instagram live. I haven't seen anything violent on the Palestinian side. I've seen the Zios literally come up and attack some of the Palestinian people. That's what I've seen. I've got some of it on recorded on screen recording.
Yeah, the violence that I've heard of, rather just for the audience's sake. So the violence that typically happens, and I've never seen a Palestinian protest. I've been to a number of them. Or anybody had any signs that were hateful towards Jewish people. They sometimes chanted from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. But I asked people what they mean by that in person, and they said just people living together and nobody wants to subject the other to control with equal rights. So they don't mean to expel one person or the other, as long as they're not violent towards them. I agree. The reports that I've seen from the various protests are usually instigated by anti-Palestinian protesters, and then in return something might happen. We know from the information for the incident that took place at the soccer game I think it was in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, where the day before the match there were a bunch of quote unquote pro-Israeli hooligan fans, which are some of the most aggressive fans, from my understanding, in the world, as they travel from place to place. And they did go into areas with Palestinian flags, and they did burn a flag, and they pulled down others, and they were chanting things like "unalive to the Arabs," and "there are no more schools in Gaza because all the children are gone," and things like this. Things that I think if were said towards Israeli Jews would be inflammatory and would likely elicit a response. It was painted in the media that a bunch of rabid pro-Arab Palestinians just attacked a bunch of Jewish fans for no reason. And again, this is the same story we hear all the time. We hear a very one-sided portrayal with none of the broader context, which leaves the viewer to think that there's one group is violent for no reason towards poor Jewish people, which I think is so disingenuous.
Montana.
So anyway, does anybody disagree with that portrayal? I'm interested to hear if Z Justice thinks differently, or anybody else who doesn't agree with that point.
I've seen it instigated. Like you said, instigated. It has to be instigated. That's what I've seen on the video clips I've had recorded and download to my phone or whatever. That's what I haven't seen anything else other than it had to be instigated by one of the Zio groups starting the problem.
So just to respond to Chip, and CNN published in June 24th, and I put it in the link so you can read it in yourself, that the violent Palestinian mob was trying to chant against the synagogues. I personally seen in Columbia University protests where the pro-Palis were going on the inside New York, Manhattan. We're going in, stripping flags, fighting with the police, pushing people aside, hitting people. And then this is a CNN report. There was a report that a Jewish protester was hit in the face 2 days ago, and then the assailant ran away in Manhattan, New York. So yeah, I mean, there are a handful. In fact, I can tell you that New York statistics says that 56% of hate crimes in New York City are committed against Jews. So now you can actually take a look at the statistics in the United States and then figure out who did it, okay? So now you don't get to sit here and preach about the peaceful Palestinians where statistics is something else.
The report says, this is an important distinction, because a lot of times on these conversations I hear about these attacks which take place in Europe or elsewhere. A lot of people have immigrated from places like Syria, wherever else, Morocco, and they talk about attacks against Jewish people, which I'm totally opposed to and call out as reprehensible. Unprovoked attacks on anybody should never happen, especially when it's about their ethnicity or religion. But the attacks that you're referring to, were they done by Palestinian Arab Muslims?
I just quoted you the CNN. I put it in there, the CNN report that came out on June 20th when the pro-Palestinian protest tried to storm the synagogue and the police in LA had to intervene. I mean, what else do you need?
Well, what I'm saying is that event itself, is it isolated, or are Palestinians going around frequently in public places harassing or trying to attack Jewish people or Jewish synagogues or whatever?
Chip, are we having
Palestinian boy, the Palestinian little boy that was stabbed numerous times to death, and his mom was sent to the ICU.
Have you ever seen a synagogue? Have you ever seen a mosque?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Have you ever seen a mosque being blown up?
Well, you know.
Have you ever seen a mosque
Was it
being
yesterday?
blown up?
Was it?
I've seen
was
synagogues being
was it?
blown up by you guys.
Guys,
So what?
Yes,
What?
can I speak?
One at a time.
Was it
Can I speak,
yesterday?
Chip?
Was it yes?
Can I
Just a
speak?
second. Was it yesterday or today that the United States sanctioned I don't know how many synagogues for making illegal land sales?
You're talking about violence.
So I mean, everybody suffers violence, not only the Jews, brother. Not only the Jews. Everybody. There's hate against Muslims. Actually,
No, this is just
actually hate against Muslim. Actually, by most measures, hate against Islam and Muslims, hate against Islam Muslims has risen in the United States.
Show me the statistics.
So don't come give me
Show me the
this
statistics.
bullshit. You told us a CNN article.
Guys, let me see.
You told us a CNN article. So it's not a competition. It's not a competition for victimhood.
Yeah, we don't want to play the Olympics of victimhood, but let me share one broader thought. I'm going to go to Montana, who asked to speak. Thank you for being patient, Montana. Okay, so this is good context. This is how people tend to behave. Let's go back to 9/11. The United States really had no Islamophobic or anti-Muslim incidents of violence up until after 9/11. Obviously, the people who are reported to have perpetrated this unbelievably surprise attack were said to be 19 Muslim hijackers, most from Saudi Arabia. So over the following months and years, there were a lot of incidents of hate crimes or attacks or intimidation or violence by Americans against Muslims. Now, to fast forward, when 10/7 happened, when people from the Christian conservative right were angered by the attacks of 10/7, and rightly so, there was a young boy and his mother outside of Chicago who were attacked. The young boy survived the attack. I'm sorry, the mother survived the attack. The young boy lost his life. This was their landlord who said something anti-Arab. There was a woman who grabbed some Palestinian children and tried to hold their heads underwater, saying that these people hate the Jews. So these crimes are not limited to attacks by Palestinians on Jewish people. There's also been plenty of violence to go around. Now, I don't know the number of incidents, the extent of them, and how you do the math. But I do know that it's not atypical when one party takes actions against the people and does atrocious things for there to be some sort of blowback related to that. Not that it's fair, not that it's reasonable, not that it's legal, but it's not atypical in historical sense, just to make that clear. Go ahead, Montana.
Oh, I just say, in a historical sense, if you look at statistics, it is crystal clear that the most hate crimes against anybody in the U.S. is against people of the Jewish religion. That's a fact. So it's true. So, and I'm not
actually
religious, by the
that
way.
is not a fact. It's against
Hey,
African
don't interrupt
Americans.
me, bonehead.
It's against African Americans, bonehead.
You've already called
You
me all kinds
dumbass.
of names. Stop
It's against
interrupting me.
African Americans.
Stop interrupting me.
So the Jews
Stop
were
interrupting
persecuted
me,
more
you
than African
bonehead.
Americans.
You've already interrupted me. You've called me names. I don't want to listen to you. Mute
You're an
yourself.
idiot.
Mute yourself. You're an idiot. You done? You want to talk more?
I'm just gonna drop myself just because this is a hypocrisy. Chip been dropping people left and right.
I
with
know.
thirds, but
I
they
agree
allow,
with you,
but they allow
Justice.
liberty. So I'm just gonna drop myself just to show how hypocritical this is always. Thank you.
Yeah,
guys.
it's unfortunate, Chip, that you let that guy insult me. And
I
you
was
just,
Montana, hold on, just real quick, guys, real quick. I was at my computer doing a search about 8 feet away, so I don't. Otherwise, I would have done it. So I apologize that happened. The allegation that I'm dropping people left or right, I've only dropped one person. Actually, I dropped two. I dropped David because he was being an absolute jackass with name calling, and number two, I dropped Kyle because he was making allegations of racism and calling people names as well. So I try to be fair about that. If you behave in a civil manner, you're up for as long as you want to stay up until I have to cycle guests. Always, I will never silence you.
I agree with you, Chip, by the way, but you haven't reprimanded Liberty, and he's made very disparaging remarks towards me, and I don't appreciate it.
Let me do it now. So, Liberty, if you don't mind, please, if you're making your point, if you want to argue against the argument, let's not call the person names, retarded, dumbass, any of these things. That's not constructive.
I hear you. No, I understand, but I challenge you to go back in the recording every time I did that. Is always a reply to an insult towards me. It's always
No,
every time.
Inaccurate.
let's not start the cycle of slinging, insult or intimidation to each other. Let's be civil and make our points. Let's be adults, okay?
Chip, it's my turn, please. Chip,
No, I
I'm
wasn't even done speaking before the guy interrupted me. Start calling me names.
Let's let Montana finish his thought. Everybody stay muted, please. Then we'll go to courtside.
No, I'll go back, and I go back to again, Chip. I think that you have to live in today's world. You have to look at what boundaries are, and there are consequences to what has happened historically. I think we could debate the whys, the what, the this, the that. We can go back in time. I mean, geez, if we kept going backwards, I could go get, in northern Sweden, my people got persecuted a long time ago. And I think that unfortunately, we can't rewind the world and spin the world backward and go back to a certain specific point in time. Therefore, we got to look at what's going on today in today's world and how do we get it resolved in a peaceful manner, which I think everybody wants. But with that being said, I don't think everybody wants a peaceful manner.
I want to ask a question in response to that. So I agree with you. I think ideally the peaceful resolution, political resolution without violence and conflict would be ideal. Here's a fair question. So are you an American?
Yes.
Okay, so am I. So I actually have forefathers tracing back to the people who signed the Declaration of Independence. But obviously the Americans, or what we now know as the United States, was initially a British colony. We had British occupation, and the British controlled the finances and the resources of the New World, quote unquote. So here's my question to you: Would you suggest that the American, colonist, the people who were being colonized, the original people that were here before the British, should they have tried to work out their plight politically and not resorted to violence to expel the Brits?
At that time, I think that you understand that about 80 to 90% of all indigenous people in the United States were gone due to sickness.
Not correct.
So is that what you want to do to Palestinians?
Gee, can you ask that guy to stop talking or mute himself?
Wait a second. Well, he's on mute. He'll stay there. He'll respect it. From 1770 and 1775, the native population west of Ohio, there was about 96% of the population remained. The multiple extinctions happened between 1805 and 1860.
No, you got to keep going back. When did Coronado get here?
Well, in other words, we're talking about different portions of North and Central and South America. But just to get to the point,
But I know the point I'm making, the disease and germs.
Regardless of the native
respect borders.
Regardless of the native population issue and the westward expansion of Manifest Destiny is a different conversation. Yeah. What I'm saying is, during the British occupation of the colonies, those who were occupied, should they have remained nonviolent and continued to try to solve their problem politically?
At that time? Yeah. I would say no.
Why?
But I think they could have. I don't know. I can't really speak to it. But I would say probably not.
Let's walk through this. And so, in other words, if a group who feels like they're oppressed by another, which was the case when the Brits were in the colonies, and one group feels like they've exhausted the chance for political resolution, and then they move to a different tactic, which includes violence, right, which is the next stage of liberation, that applied to the American freedom movement. Similarly, in Palestine, the people who have lived in the region have tried for decade after decade after decade to create a political resolution, which has failed for various reasons. They find themselves further subjugated by a foreign power enclosed in Gaza, occupied in the West Bank. What are they to do other than some change of tactic in order to achieve their goals, other than peaceful resolution?
What do I think they should do? I definitely think I think there's a distinction because it's a very different world.
How so?
Today. There's tactic. I mean, just the warfare tactics, what's going on in the world today. I think it's very different than it was in 17 or 1820.
in fairness, so here's the question. So if you and I were put in charge right now of the Palestinian Authority and the future of the movement, whatever you want to call it, and we were in the situation trying to decide what is the way forward with this. And over the decades, we've experienced when there have been periods of conciliatory acts like the Oslo Accords in 1993, which afforded a control of the territory, distribution of control and policing, etc., where about 82% of the territory Israel either has full or partial control. More and more settlements are being built. More and more of your people are losing their lives with periodic fighting. The people in Gaza are in a permanent military blockade where a third party controls the air, the land, and the sea, what comes in and out, no export economy, 50% unemployment, dire living standards for most of the population. People are born there and can't leave for
Why
life
is that?
unless they get let me finish, unless they get a work permit to go across to Israel to work, which they're being used as basically cheap labor, and they're basically expendable, peasants, so to speak. Under those circumstances, regardless of how you want to pin the blame on the rocket attacks or whatever, if you're living under those circumstances under either the West Bank or in Gaza, and you had no political light at the end of your tunnel, I don't know about you, but if I saw my people being periodically attacked and slaughtered by the enemy who's imposing these circumstances, I probably would want to fight them.
Do it.
That's me.
Do it and suffer. And I agree. But then
There you go.
I say, Chip,
He's in the corner.
then I say, go ahead and do what you do and deal with the consequences.
Well, let's follow that through. So what have the consequences been so far in Gaza?
I'm one that does not believe that it's genocide, by the way, or G-side. Sorry, I don't think I'm supposed to say that.
That's okay.
Because I do think, and I know you brought up the Falkland Islands. There's like 3,600 people that live on that island, by the way.
Well, there are many,
and
many
so
more.
I don't think you're comparing apples to apples, Chip, when you say that, and I think it was disingenuous. So I would argue to bring up something else besides the Falkland Islands.
He said, name me one conflict.
I know.
So I did. I met the standard he set forth. Now, if he said of common population and common demographics, that's a different question. But I agree with you. There are probably other examples, but there are probably many other examples where the intent and the distribution of the casualty ratio was not nearly the way it's been presented inside of Gaza so far. Obviously, the people are suffering. The leadership were not dumb. They knew there was going to be a massive reprisal for what they did, right? The question is, in terms of there's short-term and long-term strategy you have to have when you're trying to be liberated. During the American occupation by the British, many people who were trying to work and try to organize were hung. They were caught for sedition. And they lost their lives. Those were sacrifices the colonists made towards the longer range goal, because in the short term, the more stronger power had control over them. What tilted the balance in their situation was using non-conventional tactics of harassing the British residents who have stolen property from the Americans, as well as attacking convoys and using non-conventional tactics where they could survive and move on to the next fight. The British called that terrorism. Similarly, in Gaza and the West Bank, they're in a vastly asymmetric military situation. They don't have tankers. They don't have tanks. They don't have fighter jets. They don't have massive levels of air defense, resupply. They don't have jets. All those things. So they have limited choices of how they choose to engage their enemy. They have the advantage of guerrilla tactics and tunnels inside of Gaza. In the West Bank, they're pretty much sitting ducks, unfortunately. And that's why the H Group got founded and started to fight in the first place. Had these other circumstances not continued, we got to watch our words too, by the way. Had these other circumstances not continued, these groups would not have formed, nor would the attacks have taken place.
I disagree with that, but I would say that what I would say, and just my thing is a solution from today. And your contention is that, and I'm curious what it is. I don't think, and I really don't have that much skin in the game other than I prefer that there not be violence.
Me too.
Obviously.
Me too.
Like any normal person.
Yep.
I prefer not to have violence.
I agree.
And I don't want to see people being violated, whether it be Uyghurs in China, whether it be in the Sudan that's coming, whether it be anywhere on the planet. Don't want to see this stuff, right? However, we have to live in reality, and today I do not see Israel disappearing. I know people think that's going to happen, but we have to look at a solution. I know that the U.S. provides monetary assistance to Palestine. And we probably will provide more. I think there's going to be a reduction due to the things that it's being used for. But if
in my opinion, if money was spent on, as opposed to tunnels, things like that, and attacking across the border, I don't think the border is going to change. Do I think that people should be occupying additional space and additional lands? No. And I think that the U.S. should say absolutely not. Do not do that. It cannot happen.
Well, let me do this. Let me speak to what
That's
you
the problem.
I'm
That's specifically the
going
problem.
to let Liberty come in like 15 seconds, then I'm going to go to Viv.
That's fair enough.
So really quickly, according to what a lot of people have said from the Israeli side, they want the H group to surrender, and they want the hostages returned, and they want a more peaceful consent. Towards the future. So I'm going to let Liberty come in and see what he feels about that suggestion and what he feels is the way.
Can I say one thing real quick, Tip, and then I'll go on mute.
Make it very quick, please.
Okay. Yeah, as far as any U.S. hostages that are held by the H group, I think that it would behoove them to release them as quickly as they possibly can, as healthy as they can.
Okay.
And that's my opinion. And I think it would be very wise on their part to do
actually think you should implore the Israeli Zionist Yahtzee regime to do that, because just today, the resistance warriors released a video showing evidence of the Israelis yet again unaliving more of their own prisoners of war that are in Gaza. So yeah, they are trying, and not only that, they showed evidence that when they tried to bomb them and they weren't successful, they did it again to make sure the job was done. So I implore you to direct that sentiment to the ones carrying the triggers and unaliving, of course, along with entire families, including women and children. They're also unaliving their own prisoners of war in Gaza right now. As we speak, the videos are there to show it. The evidence is there to show it. The demonstrations and the protests are outside in the colony of Israel to show it. It is not news. It's not news that Israel is a fascist entity. In Oslo, of course, 1993, there were about 100,000 illegal settlers in Palestine. Some people want to think that the Nakba happened and that's it. We should forget about it. What they don't see, what people don't see, what's going on to the Palestinians on a daily. Ever since the Nakba, the Israeli expansion has not stopped. Not even since and after Oslo, 1993, it increased exponentially. There were 100,000 extreme fascist illegal settlers by all accounts, and by all accounts of the world, they are illegal settlers, and they've increased after Oslo from 100,000 extreme fascist Yahtzee settlers to now over 1 million, and they have the strongest representation in the Knesset. They rule. The Likud party is made up of these guys, and most of their ministers are from these guys, and they rule with an iron fist. They rule like Mussolini would, or someone with a mustache would have in the past. So this is really, by the way, this is what's speeding the end of this colony. So yeah, we want to talk about settlers and illegal settlers and talk about it like it's a secondary thing that we can discuss. No, we can't discuss it. With all respect, Montana, everything you're saying is something you should have brought to the table prior to October 7th, 1023. But what we've seen October prior to that was complete arrogance and impunity, expansion, more expansion, unaliving of more than 300 Palestinians just that year in 2023. And no one in the world said, where are you going? No one in the world, on October 6th of 2023, you turn on the TV and you'd see, I promise you, 1 hour, any channel, you'd see 4 or 5 ads of come to Israel, this beautiful place. Thank God that's done. That's ancient now. You don't get any of that anymore. Their tourism is completely gone. Who wants to go on a vacation to a genocidal state? The expansion, the Nakba never stopped. It's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing process. And that is precisely the freaking problem.
Yeah, I think if you think of it this way, again, I'm not justifying what happened on 10/7 because of the civilian part. As far as the military part, to the extent they broke out and engaged soldiers, I think that's just ongoing conflict. When you're blockaded, if you look that up on YouTube, or on Google, you'll find that it's considered an ongoing act of war. When you control a territory from outside, you control what goes in and out. That's a war position, not a ceasefire. So when they throw rockets across, which I cannot, you can say indiscriminate fire or whatever, but I agree, the Iron Dome gets like 99.6% of those out of the sky. They're not directed high speed, sort of ultrasonic missiles. They're just crude rockets. But getting back to this point, if you were to think of yourself as being encroached upon by an enemy, very similar to people in the Warsaw Ghetto, they saw no option, very unlikely odds they would be able to change their circumstances and just be peacefully corralled into what someone else wanted them to do. They decided to at least give it a try to fight. I believe it's very similar in Palestine. They've kind of lost hope for political future. They were off the world stage, slowly being encroached upon by their adversary with no light at the end of the tunnel. You can sit back and take it like most people in Europe did, which I think is a way to do it. But I believe that the Palestinian desire, as Liberty said before, this concept of freedom and autonomy and dignity in the territory historically they identify with is such a strong connection to their very identity, along with their religion, that those two things combined together will never leave them. Doesn't matter which group is expressed, whether you call it, whatever, PIJ or HAMAS, it doesn't matter. It's the principle at heart that's in play. As long as Israel has a vice and they're squeezing on those people, no matter what form it takes, that resistance will persist. It's only when the outer circuit, it's like a pot on the stove that has a steam valve, and right now the steam valve is closed, and you're turning the heat up on the water. The steam, nothing's going to dissipate the anger and the desire to resist unless the steam comes out, and that is going to require some concessions by the Israelis, which they're unwilling to do, which they have the upper hand right now. So we see them fighting.
Chip, I don't want to go into the past,
Montana,
Chip,
just
but
one
you
second,
don't.
please.
Let somebody else in, Montana. We got to let others come in, please.
Yeah,
I will. I'll be quiet.
I want to address the issue of everybody comes up here and says the Palestinians get money. If they used it on infrastructure, they could have done a better job. They used it on tunnel. That is a bullshit story. Bullshit story because yes, the open air prison was a beautiful open air prison. That shows you how much the Palestinians are loving life, how much they love life. They turned an open air prison into something beautiful. Hotels, beaches, restaurants, buildings, infrastructure, clean roads, all of that, yes. And Gaza existed before Israel came in and destroyed everything. So when you guys speak about the money the Palestinians received, no, they did not go on tunnel. They went where they're supposed to be gone. Then for Montana, do you acknowledge that Gaza is under a blockade? Montana?
Yes.
Okay. So you acknowledge they're under a blockade. You acknowledge you claim to be a free-minded man. You live in liberty and you advocate for freedom. And then when it comes to people that living under a blockade or an open air prison, you want to blame them. You say now you wanted a war, deal with the consequences. I can agree with you on that. But what I cannot agree with you, that you as a human, that you say that you freedom for everybody and all that bullshit, then you come back up here and you say, deal with the consequences. You stay with the oppressor.
Quick question for Federico.
One second.
Federico, can you just remind me those people in Gaza, the 2.5 million that are under the blockade for the last 20 years. Can you please remind me where they came from? Did they always live in Gaza?
No, they're all from Haifa, from Jaffa, from all over Palestine.
From all over historic Palestine. They were pushed into that prison. It's not like people that lived there. They were pushed. These are refugees in their own country at the hands of the Zionists that came from Europe, 1948, 1967, and in between, guys. This never stopped. The incursions and the annexations never stopped.
Let me just land my plane with Montana. I expect you, if you want to come up here and advocate for some kind of peace, to stay on the side of the oppressed.
No.
To say the truth. No,
I do say the truth.
Don't claim. No, then don't.
Hey, listen.
Don't claim to be a free man. Don't claim. The minute you stand with the oppressor, you acknowledge that there is a force used on people that are defenseless, and you
I
stand
don't
with the
apply
aggressor.
Marxist ideology to everything that I look at.
You what kind of ideology?
Marxist,
Marxist.
oppressor, that kind of stuff. I don't believe in that.
Montana, you speak into the real Palestinian. They belong to the land. Who are you to tell them?
You
I'm
were
not telling
just,
you anything.
Listen, you were just
Listen to the
comparing.
Palestinian. We
I
don't.
told you what I think.
You live in Europe. Listen to the Palestinian. They belong to the land. They know what they're talking about. Don't bullshit here. Yeah, it's a blockade. People didn't have the chance to even breathe. This is why it happened 7 October. Today you're here to spew your lie. 7 October was made just because they wanted to have a swap with the prisoner, which is 20,000 of them are in the Israeli prison. The second day, H group agreed for peace. They wanted to swap the prison. That was it. But you wanted to expand. You wanted to move on. You wanted to have more atrocity, more problem. Look at today. Why are you?
You
even
want people to
in
pay
Syria?
jizra.
Why you are in Syria? Why in the Google map you've already?
You heard what he said?
You already.
I heard it.
He wants
This
people
is
to pay
homophobic
what?
content.
Why have you taken over the Syrian land? Why did you made changes in the
You
Google
would charge
map
me a
to belong
jizra
to Syria? Man, you don't have a block.
if you could, but you ain't gonna ever happen.
Hey, how much you pay in taxes in the United States, bro? How much you pay in taxes?
You're supporting a terrorist.
Jizya means tax, buddy. How much you pay in the States? Why you pay
Hey,
Jizra?
you would
Why
pay.
you pay
You would.
Jizra
I
in the
know.
United States?
Trust me. I
Literally just
know.
exposed
Why you pay
yourself.
Jizra in the United States? Why you
You
pay
you try
Jizra?
to make me pay more.
No, I'm not.
Would never
2.5%.
happen, bro.
The Jizra
Sorry.
is 2. The
It always
Jizra
comes out.
is 2.5%.
Montana, if you have not traveled to the Palestinian land, you have no rights to talk about them. Let
I
the
have.
Palestinians
I haven't
speak.
been. I haven't been to. I've been over there.
You've not been there. You're lying.
What?
You're supporting
He's
the.
banned. No,
I got.
they take
my
hey,
passport
brother,
is right here.
They
I'll
take
I'll
they
take a
take
picture.
people. They take people from the United States, especially privileged Americans. They take them on trips to show them, and it's
I
specifically
paid
designed
myself, bro.
to show them this fake utopia in Israel. Just to to complete the propaganda that they feed them with ever since they're born. It's in their churches, it's on their TVs. Everything's Israel this, Israel that. There's Holocaust. Oh, they've been trained, they've been brainwashed beyond. It's irreversible. It's
Are you
just
speaking to
really,
me
for
or
a lot of
generally?
people
Talking to
in
you.
generally,
You've been
generally,
brainwashed.
the
You watch
Americans,
the CNN.
the
You watch the
Americans in
Fox
general.
News.
The Americans in general, yes.
You don't
The
even know
Americans in
what you're
general,
talking about.
unfortunately, have been duped.
Yeah, I do.
Have been
You
duped.
don't know
No,
what
you
you're talking
don't.
about.
No, you
Have
don't.
been duped. Have been
You
duped
need
into
education.
into subconsciously supporting one of the most disgusting events that ever occur in the history of humanity, and that
I
is the
disagree with
ideology
that.
of Zionism.
And
Yeah,
willing
it is, man.
There's
and willing
currently
to
more.
pay for it.
That
There's
is.
currently
Listen,
more
listen,
people
buddy.
being
Let me ask
unalived
you.
by
Let me ask
by the
you, my fellow
CCP.
American, Let me ask you. What do you think of Jeffrey Epstein?
I don't care.
Who did he work for?
I don't care.
And hold
Worked
on,
for
hold on.
Israeli Mossad.
Montana, you come up here, you make
Of course, you
arguments.
don't care.
Hold on. Well, you make arguments, and then you care about what you want to care about, and then when we ask you about something, you don't care.
Yeah, I answer some stuff.
No, but why are you here debating an issue if you don't care?
Oh, I do care. I prefer that
But you just
there
said
be
you
peace.
don't
Just say
care.
you don't care. You
I
just say
prefer
you
there
don't
be
care.
peace.
You just say you don't care. So why are you even on the panel?
May I ask
Let the
Montana?
Palestinians speak. Let the Palestinians talk about their land. They're the one who are suffering. You are in Montana. You're not suffering. These
I
are the
think I should
Palestinians.
have rights to that land.
No, you don't have a right to speak. If you want to speak,
You
speak
have,
for
hold
the,
on,
I have a
hold
right
on,
to
Quartz,
speak whenever
one
I
second,
want.
one
speak
second,
for the
one second,
blockade.
one second, one
Speak
one
for the
second, guys,
atrocity.
It's
one
like
second.
you have rights to my
Excuse
land,
me,
Tom Montana.
excuse me,
Guys,
excuse me.
can we let
Mon-
Viv? Can we let? Let's let Viv talk. She's been waiting forever.
Yeah. Stop yelling
Montana,
at me.
you have the right to speak. You have the right to say whatever you want to say, but you cannot. Every time we bring out an issue, I don't care, but we need to hear your side of the story. Like, what do you have to say? We should care, and then when we say something, I don't care. So this is not a. If
This
you
is
want to
the
debate,
typical American who sits on
if you want to debate, you debate with
Sir, this is the typical America who sits in his couch, eats the
Court,
popcorn, watches the CNN, watches the Fox News, and comes here to make argument.
Hey guys, let Vivid talk. Let her talk. Go ahead, Vivid.
Go ahead.
You know, what we don't understand is that we always talk about the Palestinians as if, you know, they have some, like they don't have rights. I'm so tired of listening that Israel has the right to defend themselves. So my question is, do the Palestinians have the right to defend themselves? Before October the 7th, anyone can look this up. There's a website called SaveTheChildren.net. And from their statistics, one Palestinian child was being unalived every week. I'd like to put this to every Israeli that is listening right now. If in Israel, Palestinians were unaliving one Israeli child every week, how do you think Israel would be responding? We cannot turn a blind eye how many Palestinian lives have been lost. We cannot turn a blind eye. These people have been under blockade for 17 years. They've been told what they can eat, what they can't eat. They've been put in torture camps. I'm not going to call it prisons. They arrest Palestinians, do not charge them. And then they say it's okay. They put a law that is it okay to break Palestinian bones. They go to the Knesset and talk, should it be okay to grave Palestinians in jail, in prisons? But we don't talk about that. Each time the Palestinian peoples resist, they are seen as thieves. But we never talk why. Why are these people resisting? What made those people do what they did? I know Palestinians. They are the most intelligent, kind people. And the reason why they have been pushed into where they are right now is because they are peaceful. If they were wild and thieves as if they make them to be, there wouldn't be as much Palestinian land taken from them. But because they've been occupied by the Ottoman Empire, the British, Israel looked and said, oh, wow, we can go and occupy them too. Because they just sat there and they're so peaceful people. Palestinian people are the most hospitable people that you can find. They literally, when those people came off ships years ago, they literally gave them beds, houses to sleep in. They came with nothing. These were HCAR survivors that came with nothing. And now, look what the Palestinians have. They come up and say, you know what? We gave them jobs. We gave them land. No, you came in ships. You came and took people's houses and lands. That's what you did. And when they ask for the smallest basic human rights, you subjugate them like they are animals. You go on live TV and say, we're going to get rid of them like the Amalekites. No water, no food, no electricity. And you kaboom them like they are nothing. You starve them like they are nothing. And yet you come sit here and play victim card. You go liberate, help, give tease. HTS was given weapons by Israel. And yet you talk that you don't go and give weapons to tease. You make sure countries liberated and then you go and steal their sovereign land. Golan Heights is always Syrian land. But you know what they do? They see an opportunity, they seize land, and then their prime minister comes on smiling. Golan Heights is ours and will always be. If this is what you think is okay, then that's fine. But don't come and blame the Palestinian people for trying to survive and have their basic human rights. Thanks for having me, Chip.
Excellent conversation. Thank you for speaking on behalf of Palestinians. It means a lot more for the Palestinians who were oppressed for 76 years. There's Americans who sit on their couch, eat a popcorn, only watch CNN and Fox News. They've never been outside the country. They come and tell us what is right, what is wrong. No, the Palestinians have the rights to speak. They need their voice to be heard. And why don't you give them an airport? Why don't you let them come on the Western media? You showing us your real true-face stupidity.
Just because the Palestinian can't speak in the CNN, they cannot speak on the Fox News. Whatever bad happens, you're only portraying the bad part of the Muslims and the Middle East and the, everything about Palestinians. Why don't you show that what the Israel is doing to the Palestinians? These people are unharmed. You're fighting a civilian. You're not fighting a real army. You don't have the balls to fight a real man. That's why you went into Lebanon to fight, and you still don't have the options. You lost in Lebanon. Now you're coming to take the land of Syria. What is your objective in Middle East? You think that the neighbors are not peaceful. What are you doing? Are you a human being? Are you a good person? Why do people hate you? Why are you kicked out of 109 nationalities? You don't deserve to be here. You're the bad people. You're the bad apple in Middle East. Every evil starts from you guys. Every atrocity, every problem in the Middle East is because of you. You need to get out of here. Go back to Poland. Go back to Russia where you belong to. Stop spewing your lies. Stop bringing your propaganda here. The world is waking up. 1 billion people have already standed with the Palestinians. You guys might have unalived few people, but let me tell you, there is more and more people waking up. We are seeing the true face, true color of all the Zionists. You don't deserve to be in the Middle East. I'm telling you, warning you. You can be having a temporary win. In the long run, you don't have a place to live in Middle East. Get the F out of this Middle East. Let people live in peace. Thank you.
Well said. Let me say one thing. Listen, this is how I feel. Anybody who can come to a region, not want to dominate others and give them less rights, is a welcome presence as long as they're respectful to others, be they Arab, Christian, Jew, Muslim, whatever. But if somebody comes to a region with the specific intent of undermining the hosts that have welcomed them, separating from other people, looking down on others, and then subjecting them to your will in perpetuity, that part's not okay. So I don't want people to, quote, go back to Europe. I want people to go back to a mindset of equality and equal rights, regardless of who they may be, and not want to dominate others. Is that fair to say? And I think I want that to be on both sides. Is that reasonable or unreasonable? Anybody want to?
I think, Chip, the problem here is that when you say that you want people to be reasonable, you're not talking or dealing with reasonable people. That's the problem.
On both sides? On both sides?
No, I think on the Zionist side, they're very unreasonable. They really do believe that they are justified in what they're doing. There's people, I mean, there's countless people that are down in the comments right now and on every live that I get on and see, who literally are justifying what's happened to the Palestinian people from day one. They justify it. They will come up with wild things. And unfortunately for them, the veil has been lifted. And all of the atrocities that have been committed against the Palestinian people from back in the late 1800s and the Zionist movement and the objective and the intent, even before they landed there, is being exposed. That information is getting out. People are seeing it, they're hearing it, they're reading it on official documents. It's not just someone saying it. They've opened Pandora's box and it's now being exposed. And these people, whether they want to believe it or not, whether they want to go and figure out that the things that they've been taught along the way in order to support this is wrong, that's their personal deal. It's not going to stop the momentum of this moving forward and the exposure of what's happening. And if people believe that the only reason the government in the United States is supporting Zionism and the state of Israel has to do with the Jewish factor, they're very wrong. The United States government is very, very much in the business of destabilizing in a geopolitical way countries and places all over our globe in order to steal their resources, in order to control, and in order to keep their power. So the movement that people are trying to mix there with religion and the support of the religion and these things, that's just secondary. That money that comes from the United States that feeds into Israel is all about keeping that secondary port, that secondary place in Israel to continue the destabilization that they've done.
Yeah, well put. I do have to ask a question. One, Federico, in a moment, I'm going to have to go dark like I do sometimes for about 5 or 10 minutes. I was hoping you could take over the management of the live in my
Sure, no
absence.
problem.
And then the other part is we do have two guests. I would love to get some voices on the other side. I think one in the panel is definitely pro-Israeli, and the other. Is there anybody here who'd be willing to cycle down who's been here for a while? I don't want to take people down.
You can cycle me down, Chip.
Hey,
How
Chip, you,
fine you stay. I'll go. Thanks, Chip, for having me. I appreciate you so much,
You
and
can stay,
thanks
Viv.
for.
You can stay, Viv.
We only need two. So Viv,
No,
please
no,
stick
liberty, you Palestinian, bro. Your voice needs to be heard. I'll
Thank you,
drop. Thank you
sister.
so
Thank
much.
you
Chip.
so much.
Take care.
Thank you,
Okay,
sister.
Thanks so
Appreciate it.
much.
Thanks for
Chip, you
being
can
here. I
drop
really
me too.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having me here. Thank
Sure.
you for standing with Palestine. Free Palestine from the river to the sea.
Okay, thank you for being here. I appreciate your input.
Thank you, brother.
Let me bring up the other two guests. Let's give them a chance to speak. We have King Matthias and we have Apple. So I'll welcome both of them, and then after we introduce them, I'm going to have to go dark for a few minutes until I can get to a different location. Okay, welcome, King Matthias. Are you there?
Chip.
Hey, he was on here earlier, I think. What would you like to contribute based on what's been said?
So there's obviously lots of being said, but I think that this discussion, this panels, we can all agree that the reason for all of this is because of what happened on October the 7th that opened up this whole discussion. And if you're going to agree on that, that also means that you guys wanted to, or the Palestinians wanted to do an October the 7th. And if they wanted to do an October the 7th, they wanted to raise the awareness to their issue. And if they wanted to do that, they also wanted to basically say what they're saying now is complain about the G side. And I remember even after October the 7th, right away, it was so unbelievable to me that even before Israel even responded, it was already like people in the streets and saying G side and all these kind of things. So to me,
Really?
to me, it's
Listen,
like the,
Do you
we're in
really,
the
do you really
6,000th
think people
year,
are going
the
to
6th
believe that?
day. The
Jeez.
Jews will return to the.
so what I was trying to say is that, look, you guys want to say G side because if you say G side, you want to turn it against Israel. So therefore, your message of the G side is not credible because this was your plan all along. You
We
wanted
don't
to
have
say
to say
G side
anything,
all
King.
along from the start.
We don't have to say anything. The world
You want to
Liberty,
say
one
G
second,
side.
one second, one
You want,
second.
so in other words,
King,
you want to say
King.
G side not because you're
Guys,
sympathizing for your
let
people
me
to
let
get
me
G-sided,
moderate the panel so
but
everybody gets a fair deal.
Go ahead,
Right?
Frederico.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So King, I appreciate, if we go on a long monologue, it's gonna take forever. So make one point at a time, and somebody will answer you. Then you make another point, and somebody else will answer you. So like this, you don't take 5 minutes talking, and then everybody gets nerved up and want to answer you at the same moment. So just one thing at a time. Like the first thing you mentioned about the Palestinian voices. You wanted the Palestinian to be heard. So I asked Liberty, why is it before October 7th the Palestinian voices weren't heard and now they are heard?
Because for a change right now, it's the oppressor that got hurt. It's the oppressor that got hit, right? We've been screaming and shouting and yelling for the good part of 80 years, if not more, and nobody's been listening. But the minute we defend ourselves with our own hands, it's hurt. The whole world wants to see what's going on.
So what was the other point you were talking about?
okay, so that's true. So you're saying that the way to get heard is to hurt the Jews. That's what you're saying.
No.
That's what you just
That's not what
said.
I'm
You see,
saying.
Liberty,
That's not what I'm saying.
one second.
That's not what I'm saying.
You see, King, this is the problem.
Isn't that what he just
This is
said? I'm
no.
Here's
This
what
is
I'm
the
saying.
problem.
Can I?
Liberty,
let
me manage
Yeah,
it.
go ahead, and then please give me a couple of
manage
minutes.
it,
Let me
yeah.
clarify.
Sure.
Not for his sake.
So he was explaining to you, okay, that before October 7, the Palestinians were getting hurt, and nobody would hear about them. And then after October 7, that the Israeli got hurt, and now everybody screams and yells out, "Oh, an Israeli got hurt." Although after October 7, we have 400 almost 400 days of October 7 in Gaza, and still you guys coming up here and to justify it. And like, when is it enough? Like, when is it that you're gonna say, all right, you know what, it's enough right now? We still have we still have Gaza under siege. We still control the air. We still control the border. We still control all of that. When is it enough that you stop dropping BOB on children and women?
That's intentional. You're trying to tell me, Hamas, it's not intentional that civilians are being hurt? That's intended by Hamas.
That's intended by Israel, buddy.
No.
Hold on.
You lie.
Hold on, you lie.
Montana, don't say you lie, because everybody can tell you.
When a couple of perpetrators go into a school and siege it, and when you come and you bomb the whole place, who's doing that? Who's doing that? I mean, what kind of common sense, what kind of mental pretzel does an average American have to twist his mind into in order to justify this garbage?
Are you trying to tell me?
Here's what I'm trying to tell you.
You're trying to tell me, I already heard, you're trying to tell me that you're not launching attacks out of civilian areas.
The entire Gaza civilian area.
No,
we don't have, buddy.
Open air prison.
Buddy, we don't have military bases. We don't have military bases in Gaza. No, they're not hiding under schools.
Yeah,
they're not hiding under hospitals.
You and I know.
No, they're not. You and I know that's a goddamn lie. And you're believing and you're eating the Zionist propaganda whole, man.
Liberty. Montana is hijacking the
I'll stop.
Their lives somewhere else.
But I'll say to all these people that wonder why October 7th, right? It is very well known that the United States and its Western allies have always treated Israel as a state above the law. They provide in the occupation and cracking down on the Palestinian people, and also allows Israel to exploit such situations to take more Palestinian lands and to Judaize their sanctuaries. Despite the fact that the UN had issued more than 900 resolutions over the past 75 years in favor of the Palestinian people, and Israel rejected to abide by all that. Despite all that, what do you expect the Palestinians to do? What do you expect the Palestinians to do when the Israeli Judaization plans to the Al-Aqsa Mosque and its temporal division attempts, and as well as in the intensification of Israeli settler incursions to the Holy Mosque? What do you expect us to do?
I expect them not to martyr their children.
What do you expect us to do? What do you expect us to do after the practices?
Montana is it's like LA Bakery. You know LA Bakery? No matter what you're gonna tell him, he's gonna around.
Let me ask him a question. Is there a world, a situation, Montana, American, lover of freedom, liberty, and apple pie? Is there a situation in which you would change your views on this, or is it absolute? Is your brainwashing irreversible? Is your indoctrination just done with and beyond, past the threshold that you can fix? Is there something? Here's how I think, buddy.
Yes, my mind is pliable. By the way, to answer your question, yes, my mind is pliable.
Here's how I
think.
I'm gonna personalize this a little bit. May, the last day of May, my father, my old man, just passed away. I was born and seen the world in a refugee camp. And when I was a little older and asked my old man why we're here, he explained to me how, because he had just gotten his engineering degree after the occupation, how because he's an engineer, they put him in jail for 2 months, and along with many other people of higher learning, were kicked out of Palestine and to never come back again. Many years later, many decades later, after his father and his mother in Palestine passed away, which was about 5 or 6 years ago, he finally got his American citizenship and was able to go there. An old man. You know, he left in his early 20s and came back an old man in his 70s to see where he was born and to see his family. At the border, a 19-year-old Ethiopian bitch, for the lack of better terms, held him in the hot sun for 8 hours because there was something wrong with his American passport, because his American passport said he was born in Palestine, because when he was born, guess what? There was no such thing called Israel. Now, fast forward to this year. I got my citizenship, and the first time ever in my life, I'm able to go visit the land of my grandparents, right? I get there, me and my wife and my kids, and when we get to the village, I see our village in the midst of like a couple of settlements. Every house, every building in our village has water tanks on top of it, yet the settlements don't. And when I asked why, when I went in, I asked why, they said because the Palestinians get water for 8 hours a week. If that Saturday you don't get the water, tough luck, you get it next week. So in that 8 hours, you got to fill as much tanks as you can. While the Israeli white invading Yazidis right next door in the settlements, right, protected by the army, don't have tanks on top of their homes. How is that fair? Now, mind you, they took me to visit many places in my village. One of the places they took me to is the old cemetery where my grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather are buried. And then they took me to the remnants of the other older cemetery where even my ancestors before that are buried. A couple of days later, I take my wife and kids out to go visit Jerusalem. And on the way, because my wife is wearing a headscarf, our car gets stopped in the midst of 1,000 other cars. And now they're starting, they'd come to the car, another Ethiopian and another European and another European chick, they come to the car, armed to the teeth, take our passports, take my 8-year-old son out the car and start questioning him. Where are you from? Where are you from? Are you the person on this passport? Because his passport is a couple of years old. And if you know, from 6 years old to 8 years old, you kind of change how you look a little bit. So they're sitting here interrogating us, trying to find out where we're from. Then I couldn't help but to think of the fucking cemetery that I had just visited a few days ago. And then I looked at these people and I'm wondering, my ancestors are all buried literally just a couple of miles down this fucking highway. I wonder where this guy's father or mother were born. I wonder where these fucking invaders are from. And then they're speaking, and I swear to God, I went to a little daze, and all I can see is the blessed boots, the boots of our blessed resistance warriors on these motherfuckers' necks, because of the way they treat us, because of the way they prevent us from visiting our own land. They came and took it. Invaders came from from beyond the seas in ships, war-ridden, ghetto-dwelling, pogrom-fleeing invaders came and took my fucking country, pulled out a book, a 3,000-year-old book out of their pocket, mind you, that's full of fucking contradictions, and now said, this is mine. And I cannot visit my ancestors and my cousins and my family that lives in Palestine, in that village that is surrounded by fucking military and military barricades. Why is that? How is that fair? How is that fair? Explain to me, Montana.
Just suck it up and accept your own country. Why don't you just suck it up after all these years instead of crying?
King, that's not nice. That's not nice of you. That is a very
crying over not even his people. This is hundreds of years. He's still crying. You could have just accepted it and settled.
He's not.
And been okay, we'll settle the deal. You keep crying.
King, are you bothered for what he said because he spoke the truth? You know, everything.
Look at his hate.
Everything Liberty said is 100% correct. It's a lived experience. It's not something that somebody told him. He's telling you what's happening with him, and you telling him to suck it up.
Yes, because you know what? In most of disputes, people have to suck it up. You have divorce, people suck it up. You gotta settle.
How about you suck it up on October 7th and everything else?
We already sucked
Then
it up. We
suck
already
it
gave
up.
you
Suck
so
it
many
up and keep
deals.
your
You
mouth
guys
shut.
never
Don't
accepted.
tell. No.
I thought he was
We
asking me.
sucked it up so many
Rodrigo.
times.